it going, everyone, and welcome to the season finale of Buddy's House of Horror podcast. It's been a hell of a run, you guys, and I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who's tuned in over the past year, and thanks to all the amazing guests I've been able to collaborate with during season 3. Jenna Kramer, Tony Masiello, Dynamite Jared even made an appearance this year. Just all you guys, just thank you so much. Of course, if you're listening to the show for the first time, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you're listening to this on. And if whatever you're listening to this on lets you leave a rating and a review, make sure you go ahead and do that. It really helps the show out a lot. And if you haven't already, please make sure you subscribe over on the YouTube channel, where not only do I post these podcasts, but I also have full-length videos that come out, especially in October. There's a ton of videos that come out in October, and you definitely don't want to miss it. And yeah, as I said, this is the season finale. Season 4 will be premiering this October, and I really wanted to go out with a bang this year, and trust me, we've got a hell of an episode to end this season on. You've read the title, so you obviously know this is the top 10 horror sequels of all time. And of course, with an episode this big, I couldn't possibly do it alone, so I had to get fan favorite guest Midnight Miles Android, the Midnight Mandroid, back on the show to really make sure we end things on a high note. And I think that we did. I think we really ended on a really amazing episode for you guys. And now, with an episode this huge and epic, it couldn't possibly be contained in just one podcast. What? That's right, this season finale is going to be a two-parter. The first part is airing today, obviously, and it will conclude in the next episode. So basically, both of these together are going to be the season finale. Today, you're going to get picks 10 through 6, and in the following episode, it's going to be picks 5 through number 1. And we split it up mainly because we had so much to say and had so many great conversations, we actually ended up recording for over 4 hours, which I felt was a bit long for just a single podcast. I'm not Jim Cornette or anything. So I felt the best thing to do was to just split it up into 2 episodes. So yes, this is part 1 and part 2 will be coming soon. So you're gonna wanna make sure you subscribe so you don't miss it. And again, this is a great episode, so I'm just gonna wrap up this intro and get right to it. So here it is, the top 10 horror sequels, part 1. Now let's get spooky. Alright, well, as the illustrious Stone Cold Steve Austin says, we're rolling sound here. It's been a while, my man. It's been a while.
It's been a little bit, yeah.
For a House of Horror. Obviously, I am your host, Buddy, and we've got the co-host for some of these episodes, your boy.
Midnight Miles, back again. Probably sounding better than on some podcasts I've been on. I'll say that. It's been I don't know how you guys can stand and listen to me sometimes if you check out any of the other podcasts I'm on, because sometimes I get a little too loose before I do these, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, but you're good. We're recording this at a slightly decent hour. We've got some coffee here, actually.
Actually, yeah, I had a rough day so far, but yeah, 8 p.m. That for us recording a podcast, that's quite good.
Yeah, that's a very reasonable hour.
Usually it's between the 10:30 and 11:30 time that we start. We started that one. The last one I did with you guys, you and your boy Jared, or my boy Jared too, but yeah, like 9:55 maybe. But it was over 2 hours.
Right, and then it keeps going for a while, yeah. You know how it goes when we get together, and at the time of recording this, because it's been a while since we've done a House of Horror together, I think like it was just a couple days ago, it was 200 days until Halloween. So I think right now it's like 197.
Oh, maybe. So we're breaking kayfabe right now.
We're breaking kayfabe a little bit, but
all right,
it all adds to the appeal, man.
We're recording this a little early, but because this will be an October run, right?
I was gonna leave it up to you, and we can talk about this a little bit, because this can either be the season finale of this season, which I would be cool with, but if we do that, we need another episode similar to this to go into October.
I think we have time to do that. Aren't we doing...
Well, we'll talk about
another series, right? I'm not going to say the name, but we're ranking a series for October, right?
We're ranking a series. There's going to be an underrated film. And if we release this during this season, we'll need another top 10 of some sort.
We could probably do another. Look, we have 200 days, roughly.
Right. So if you're listening to this in late May or June... Welcome to the season finale. If you're listening to this in October, then, happy Halloween.
Hope you had a great summer.
Yeah.
If not, I hope you're starting to have a great summer, or you're about to.
Yeah. So yeah, we're double fisting. Well, you got a water and a coffee. I've got water, coffee, and what is that? I don't know if this is Beer Wolf. I don't know if this is any good. Have you had this before?
I had it before when it came out last year for the first time. Yeah, it's pretty good.
I figured it was appropriate. I mean, we're House of Horror.
That's a hard cover.
It's got a werewolf on it. Not that there may or may not be werewolves on my list, but I don't want to give anything away. But may or may not. Most likely not. But
me, as much as I love werewolves, I'll spoiler alert. I better look at my own list to make sure I'm not stupid. But old pen and paper, you know what I mean? I'm old school, man.
Yeah.
Nope, I can safely say there are no werewolves on this list, which is very, very sad. Should we do some honorable mentions real quick? Should we get started? Well, do you want to talk about something first?
Before we get into the honorable mentions, because I have a few things to talk about.
Oh, okay.
But I guess the first thing, just as sort of like, I don't want to say like ground rules, but like, what in your eyes like makes a good horror? This is the top 10 horror sequels, by the way. I don't think we said that.
No, we didn't.
But what?
I was very excited to do this one. This was very, very hard for me because I did a top 10 horror sequels list years ago, and I don't know where it is. It's pretty much the same, but I feel like in my brain I'm missing like one or two. But we'll talk about that later.
We'll talk about it.
You go ahead.
But what in your mind, I guess when you were compiling this list, like what makes a good horror sequel?
So, to me, when you're having a good horror sequel, you got to look. You look at the first film. What made the first film resonate with people? I don't want to say made it successful because it doesn't have to be about that. But what made people care, or like I said, resonate with the film? Are you being true to the characters, maybe the mythology that you created?
Right.
And let's be honest, especially as Americans, probably most of these will be American films. We want them bigger, badder, stronger, faster, everything. When you're gonna do a sequel, you want to raise the bar a little bit. Even though most of the time, I don't want to say most of the time because I'm a sucker for sequels. Probably why I wanted to do this list, but a lot of times with most people, the originals are always the best.
Right.
But I feel like in a lot of the films, I would say about like 4 or 5 of mine, I definitely think are either on point with the original or better.
So the way that mine kind of breaks down is like the first couple on the list like are not as good as the original. It doesn't mean they're not a good sequel. They're just not as good as the original.
Right. I agree with that.
Like the middle films in my list, you can probably say like they're on par with the original. Some would argue they're a little better, some a little worse. But then the top few on my list, I think, are definitively like better than the original film.
Okay.
So that's kind of how I did mine, and that's how I did the ranking, because these aren't necessarily compared, I guess, against each other. The way I did it how good of a sequel they are.
Okay.
I guess. So I don't know. My list is a little bit funky, but I did it that way on purpose. Just because, I mean, like the last one, obviously we were talking about all the Halloween films, so there was a lot of overlap, obviously, because there were only 10 films to choose from.
Right.
So for mine, I made a few exclusions, and I did some things that I know for sure are not going to be on yours just because I figured to give us more shit to talk about, you know?
Right.
So,
I figured at least over half our list would probably be different anyways. I just assume. Probably. It would be strange if they weren't. But I'm sure there'll probably be a little overlap. We'll see, though. We don't know at all what either of us picked.
Right. Yeah, we have no clue.
I gave one. There was kind of like one clue, but like that was it. But we watched one together.
We did.
Which was nice because actually the last time I watched that was with your co-host Jared Lachey.
Yeah, many moons ago.
Many moons ago, but even he really liked that one. And it took him, it was a series, I'm not going to spoil it now, we'll talk about it later, but it was a series that it took him basically his entire adult life to watch. I don't know how he avoided it for so many years.
He thought it was overrated for a long time.
And then he wisened up.
Yeah. So yeah, sometimes the sequel will do the same thing as the original and succeed. Sometimes it's on par. Sometimes it surpasses. Sometimes the film tries to do like something like so different that it's hard to really compare it to the original. And sometimes it's better. Sometimes it's worse. But it's just like a problem with a lot of sequels nowadays is sometimes like because of worried about box office, worried about this, especially if they're a bigger film. I feel like they tend to tread too safely
towards the original source material.
Right.
Because they're like, oh, we can't lose this. We can't, put $100 million into this. We can't do that. Or like, if you look at like 70s and 80s sequels, they give money to some of these, excuse me, these auteurs that would just be like, I'm going to make something insane. Or
right.
like, what if we had a zombie baby version of something from the first, and
right.
you're just like, how did this even get greenlit?
Right.
But I'll give it to people back in the day. They were throwing everything at the wall and some of these sequels to see what would stick and what wouldn't. I like watching a lot of sequels from those eras, even if they're not the best, because they're creative as hell.
Yeah,
they just really are.
Exactly. And there's going to be a lot of different types of horror on both of our lists, I'm assuming, because I like a lot of different films. I don't know what else to say for like an intro. Of course, this list is limited to films that we have actually seen.
Correct.
So if there's stuff that like we're missing, let us know on Twitter in the comments or wherever what we should check out. Because if we haven't seen it, it's obviously not going to be on the list. I'm not going to bullshit you and put some film that I've never seen on the list.
Mine, because you were talking about how yours was kind of compiled. Briefly, mine was. If I think it's actually a good film, like I think it's actually a good sequel, I think it adds to the canon, adds to the source material, complements it. But then also there's a big heavy dose of favoritism that I just really fucking like the films.
Right.
So, these are our opinions. Fuck you if you don't like them. We love these films. But I'm sure Buddy's list is going to be very good. Obviously, I think my own list is very good. So I hope you guys, if you haven't seen some of these, will check them out because they're a lot of fun. I can say that at least.
So how many films on your list do you think that I probably haven't seen?
Got my little paper over here. I'm hiding
because I know for sure there's probably at least, I can guarantee 2 of the films on my list you've never seen, or if you have, it's not something you've watched or like super familiar with.
I feel like you've seen probably almost my entire list, to be honest. I would say maybe like 1 or 2 max.
Yeah.
I feel like all of these, I feel like my list isn't overly obscure, which it doesn't have to be because they're mine, but I feel like, I mean, this is just the shit that I love, especially like some of these sequels, a couple of them, I saw before the originals.
Right.
So I have like a stronger bond with these sequels than some of the originals, even though obviously most of these, as you'll find out, these series, obviously the originals fucking rip too, so.
Right. So I actually reached out to the fan base before we get started with our picks. I reached out to put up a poll and everything, just say what's your favorite horror sequel and why. So we got a few submissions.
All right.
Because most of none of the ones that were one of the ones that was submitted is on one of our lists, I'm sure, but I don't think these other ones maybe would have made our lists. So Halloween 3, Alex DePryor, his favorite horror sequel.
Okay.
He felt very heartbroken with us last year when it wasn't included in our list, but we set the rules.
I'm pretty sure even I said that I was a little torn it wasn't on there, but I understood why we did what we did.
Right. So Roger Connors, the Scream Queer of Cleveland, I don't know if you're familiar with him and his films. His favorite sequel is Hello, Mary Lou, Prom Night 2, which has been on my...
Prom Night 2 is great.
It's been on my watch list forever.
That's great. It's not that I didn't think about it, but like... we talked about this briefly, but I told you before we started this podcast, my number 10 slot was like a rotation of like 5 to 6 films. A couple of them I was trying to find do I have this on VHS still? Or, I'm trying to figure out if I can watch this.
Right.
A couple of them I went on different streaming things to try to find the films.
Right.
I mean, I probably could have rented it for fucking $12 off something, but I'm like, at that point, I'm like, why don't I just like find a way to buy it? Like,
yeah, exactly.
I was like not trying to go out of my way hard to find something, but I really struggled with my, that last part. But anyways, Mary, you need to see that. It's really, really good.
He says
really good.
He says it's fucking absurd in the best way possible.
It's very absurd.
That's all he said.
If I remember right, there's a horse, like there's like a rocking chair or like a rocking something or just a rocking horse. And I think it comes to life in it. And its eyes are glowing red and it's doing like that. That's what I remember from that. There's a lot of very almost like trippy, fantasy, dreamy stuff. Almost like, obviously, there's probably some Nightmare on Elm Street influence as the thing went on.
Right.
Kind of that, but it's way different than the original Prom Night. And I love the original Prom Night.
Yeah. Sean Manos, he submitted Bride of Frankenstein. Definitely a superior film to the original. It did not make my list.
Did not make mine.
Incredible imagery. Of course, the bride herself is a horror icon.
Yeah. It's a fantastic film.
Yeah. Sophie, Final Girl Sophie on TikTok and Twitter and all that, she put Creep 2. Because it lets the killer be completely unhinged since the audience is in on it now.
That is a great sequel. Have you seen the Creep series?
Yeah, Jared and I reviewed Creep 1 and 2 last year on the show.
Okay.
As part of the Two Nerds Halloween Havoc special. So
maybe I listened to part of that. I think maybe I did.
We were your top listened to podcast last year, allegedly.
I wish I should have screenshotted that. But I do listen. I listen to all these sometimes, but I'm bad. I'm on these freaking podcasts, and it's because I listen to so much stuff at work. I'm listening to like music. Like my Spotify. I'm not going to get too off topic here. My Spotify this year said I had to look up the equivalent of how many. In 2020, I listened to 3.5 months of music.
That's crazy.
That's how many minutes it was. I looked. I was like, oh my god. But I listen to music sometimes for 10 hours at work.
Right. Yeah. If you're there all day,
like, it's easier for me if I'm in a because I have to stay so focused because I'm constantly multitasking, thinking about things. If I stay with like music, so it's like in my head, I'm like in the zone. Where if it takes a podcast, it almost takes me out of my element a little bit.
Right. Yeah, I can understand that. Yeah.
If I have a slower day, I'll put on a podcast or something.
Yeah. And then Jared, of course, he submitted Psycho 2. And the less said about that, the better.
Oh,
but we'll get to that.
All right.
Spoilers.
Okay.
All right. You got any honorable mentions before we get into our list? Because I have 10 honorable mentions. I'm just going to roll through them real fast.
I'll try to make my shit brief.
Go ahead. I've been talking a lot, so.
Buddy's winded already. He's like, holy shit. If anyone hears me cough a little bit, this is because it's like I didn't even mean to as I do it right there. I had COVID about a month ago now. I guess we both did. We're the COVID bros now. Yeah. But buddies seem to be okay. The young stallion over here, and me, I'm a few years older, but I got that like a light smoker's cough now. So don't mind me, audience. We're still alive. We made it through, and we're all vaxxed now and shit.
Yeah, we're all fully vaxxed. Everything's good to go. So.
Honorable mentions. I'll start off with this. So when I put my list together, I think I was a little bit more critical with if things crossed into a lot of genres, I didn't put them on the list.
Right.
Like in regards to, I think we briefly touched on this. If it's more sci-fi or more action than horror, but it's still like sci-fi, horror, action, horror, whatever, I kind of excluded it.
Right. I can understand.
Because honestly, like, okay, I think Aliens is one of the best sequels of all time.
Yeah.
But it's a fucking action movie with horror imagery.
Yeah,
I mean, it's an action movie.
movie.
Let's not beat around. If Aliens was like Alien, I feel like I probably could have included it.
Right, but it's definitely more the action-y stuff than it is the horror. For sure.
I thought about putting Gremlins 2 on.
Yeah.
But then I'm like, God, it's just a comedy creature movie. You know, like I really tried to sit there and be like.
So. Gremlins 2 is also one of my honorable mentions.
Oh, wow.
As well as Aliens.
Oh, wow, okay.
So it's in my honorable mentions under the category good sequels, but not exactly horror. Because, I mean, like, Gremlins 2, I mean, yeah, it's a horror film, sort of. It's sort of like the first one's a horror film. I mean, it's a horror film, but it's also a comedy and a Christmas movie.
Yeah.
I mean, like... it's hard to take, because it does have horrifying moments here and there, but, I mean, you've got Hulk Hogan yelling at the screen.
Oh, my God.
You've got, like, the punk rock Gremlins, Bat Gremlins. Like, there's, like, it leans too much into the comedy, I feel.
It's very, to me, when I really think of it, it's very comedy. Like, maybe could be, like, the, like, gateway horror films for, like, kids. Which is probably, part of what they were going after. Oh, man, I just thought of a great one. This is going to get a lot of shit, so I'm going to throw this one on there real quick.
Go ahead.
A film that I like, and I'm not afraid to admit it, I don't know if you've ever seen it, that's definitely more of a comedy, but it's more of just a bad film, but it's amazing. Troll 2.
Troll 2, yeah. I didn't even consider that. But yeah, 2. Didn't even consider it.
Troll 2 is a masterpiece of just disastrous proportions, and I love it.
Yeah.
So I could have put that on there. There were a couple others where I was like Dario Argento has like some trilogies and stuff, but they're all
Right, like Inferno, and like
they're
there's
official.
like they're like loose sequels though, but like
Well, because at least with the Three Mothers trilogy, they're all focused on one mother per film in the books and stuff the books that talk about the mothers in the film. So yes, Inferno's a sequel to Suspiria, but I feel like they're so far off almost that I was just like, I can't.
It's also like a self-contained thing. Like I feel like you could watch that and not even know it's a sequel. You know,
it's true.
Like
so that's one of the things that I had to like shy away from that. Like I said, I'm trying to wrap this up here, but my 10 spot was rotating. So 28 Weeks Later is another one that I really love. That film came out a week before I graduated high school. I remember getting out of school like 10:45, which was I used to when I was a senior, and rushed to the theater. And for the first showing, it was like 11:55 or something.
Oh yeah.
I just remember me sitting there and some fucking just giant man like in the back, like in the side, whatever. And I just remember like, just like staring at it. And it's just such a wild. I don't know if you like the 28 Days Later. 28.
I saw that. I haven't seen 28 Weeks. I've seen 28 Days.
Maybe I'll bring it over a while because I was gonna watch that before we did this because I was really thinking that was gonna be my number 10.
Yeah.
But then I looked through my films and I really thought about it one more time. I was like,
I don't know if this makes the cut.
A lot. Yeah. I want to go back. I have the whole Saw series now. I want to go back and watch some of those because I was really high on a couple of those sequels when like we were younger. But like,
the
only Saw I've really rewatched in a long time. I've rewatched the first one a few times, but I haven't really gone back and done all the sequels. I know Saw 5 will not be anywhere near my favorite because Saw 5 is just a really bad episode of a police drama.
I was looking at your Letterboxd the other day and I saw Saw 5 like at like 1 star or something. I was like, nice.
Did I lower it? Did I do that low? That's one of my lowest rated films.
It was something like that. Yeah, it was crazy.
Cool. That was the tagline where they're like, "You'll never believe how it ends," and then it literally ends
exactly how
there was no twist in that one. It's the only one that there's no twist. It's just like, okay, cool, he gets killed, he's dead. You can't make it out. It's done.
Yeah, I haven't rewatched most of those in a while. At least not since Letterboxd. Like I don't have all of them rated or anything. But just to blow through the rest of my honorable mentions real fast. So good sequels that are not exactly horror. I already mentioned Aliens, Gremlins 2. And then a couple others. Waxwork 2. Very good film.
I've only seen Waxwork 2 once, and to be honest, it was so long I can barely remember it. I need to rewatch that.
It's basically like an action sci-fi comedy because they're like going back in time and doing this and that. I remember it being a ton of fun, but I even remember at the time I was like, this is not like a horror film at all.
Right.
Blade 2 as well.
Oh, all right.
Horror stuff. I love vampires and all that, but like again, it's a comic book movie. It's not really a horror film. It's more actiony. And then Godzilla vs. King Ghidorah from the 90s. Obviously not a horror film, but a monster movie. These two barely missed the list. So this is my 6th and 7th honorable mention. Barely missed the list.
Okay.
Bride of Reanimator.
Ooh, okay.
Miles may have something to say about that later.
That's good. You don't think I like Bride of Reanimator?
No, I'm saying you might have something to say about it later.
Okay. All right. We'll
or
see.
do you not? Maybe not.
Spoiler, I didn't put it on my list.
All right, it's not on Miles' list either.
But it's a great film. Everyone should watch it.
Exorcist 3. Honorable mention.
Okay.
And these next 3, so this rounds out my 10 honorable mentions, I cut these just for the sake of variety. And I wanted to have a little extra challenge for my list, so I cut out the big 3. There's no Halloween, there's no Nightmare on Elm Street, there's no Friday the 13th on my list, just for the variety. They would obviously be on there.
I'm shook.
But
you didn't even put one of any of those 3 on there?
Just for the variety.
Oh,
just because I figured, here's the thing, we're probably going to pick the same one for a couple of them, so why talk about them twice?
Maybe.
For some of them.
For one of them, we probably
So, because I figured I talked about Halloween 2 enough last year.
Right.
It'd be Halloween 2. I would probably pick either New Nightmare or Nightmare on Elm Street 3.
Didn't you say you really enjoyed 2 though on a rewatch?
I enjoyed 2 a lot better than I did.
The film's way better than most people think it is, to be honest. Anyways, we might talk about.
We might talk about that later. And then Friday the 13th Part 4 is what I would have picked.
I love Part 4.
Either that or Jason Lives.
Jason loses. I feel like the sequels I love in the Friday the 13th series, I love all of them. Let's be honest, they're all fun in their own ways. But I feel like they aren't the ones that a lot of people love.
Right.
Like my favorite sequels are, well, maybe we'll talk about it more later.
Yeah.
Let's just yeah.
Let's just get to the list. But first, all right, so the top 10 horror sequels. You are the guest today, so I will once again let you go first with your number 10 slot.
Okay. I am going to I'll pull a buddy on this. I have my list on paper, but I will pull up maybe somewhat as you're doing something. I might pull up some like links or things too, so we can maybe make it a little more interesting. But anyways, I don't think I necessarily need to for this first one, but I'm going to. You put me on the spot now. I thought I was actually gonna let you go first, so I'm not gonna let you see this.
I mean, I can go first if it's going to take you a minute, but
no, I guess I got this.
all right.
So my first is Demons 2.
Okay.
1986. I can't show you the whole list. I don't know why I'm opening this. I just want people to realize how freaking prepared we are. You know, we're like on the phones. Our lists are like this. But Buddy does this professionally, obviously. So, I mean...
I don't know. I think for because some of these I wrote like one sentence, and then other ones I took like a paragraph of notes that like are going to make no sense whatsoever. So...
I wish I was prepared
it's
as
fine.
Buddy. But Demons 2. I went to school for special effects makeup, as I think maybe it's been mentioned on here on the, obviously. But I got really into Italian horror right after high school. Like I started reading. I was reading a lot of magazines and stuff at the time. Fangoria, Rue Morgue, Horror Hound had just started up, which is crazy. It's been that long now, but. And I kept reading about Italian directors, and I'd read about Suspiria when I was like younger, like 16, because I've always kind of been digging.
Right.
Mind you, this is all pre-streaming, so people don't realize pre-streaming and even the internet was big, but not.
It's not what it is now. Like you can't like nowadays. There's all this stuff on Facebook, like these horror groups, and IMDb's huge now. Letterboxd. I mean, this shit didn't exist in like the mid 2000s and all that. I mean, you were on like FearNet and stuff. Like that was your big one.
Well, because FearNet, like we've talked about here before, FearNet, which was actually run by Lionsgate, at one point, FearNet would put up 5 to 6 films to stream free on their site a week. But it was mostly a news site. But the quality was good. Like they had a legit player because they had a legit backing.
Yeah.
So, like, there was some stuff, that's how I watched stuff for the first time. And it was stuff that wasn't on video. So, I remember they would, like, put news things like, oh, this is coming. Like, I remember, like, Night of the Creeps is coming. And I'm like, fuck, Night of the Creeps is not anything, I've, like, heard about it.
Right.
Sitting in front of the fucking computer like this, like, staring at it. But, anyways, read a lot about, I started getting into Fulci, and I was in there. Argento was kind of the gateway, stuff like that. And then I hear about, these Demons movies are real big special effects, just like gross fucking effects. And I finally was able to see a trailer, and I'm like, oh my god! Like the first one, I was like, this looks insane. For any of you who haven't seen Demons or Demons 2, please see them both.
Which I have to.
You don't have?
I've never seen either of them. No,
I have
terrible.
both of them on video. We could watch them sometime. Actually, I was supposed to watch Demons 2 with the person that I was seeing prior. We didn't make it that long to watch it.
We didn't make it that long.
We watched Demons, though, and she loved it. But we didn't make it to Demons 2, which was slightly disappointing. But that's okay. So I watched Demons recently. I wish I would watch Demons 2. But for the people who haven't seen Demons, I'll just do it real briefly. Demons is about a film that basically comes to life in a theater and basically creates almost like an outbreak of these demonic possessed creatures, but they look like a mix between something out of the Evil Dead and like stuff like that, except for the gore's even more over the top. Like there's a fucking scene where a guy's riding a motorcycle with a samurai sword cutting demons like body parts off through a movie theater, mind you. So, because there's a dirt bike in the movie theater for a contest.
Oh, okay.
And there just
yeah.
so happens to be a samurai sword that's supposed to be a decor for something else.
Right, like a film prop
so, as a
or whatever,
smart
yeah.
human being, you get on the dirt bike, you grab the samurai sword, and you start fighting demons.
That's a smart character,
and
yeah.
It's awesome. The ending is the whole film is insane. There's a girl that gets cocaine scraped off her titty in one scene while Billy Idol's playing in the background. It's very 80s.
Yeah.
In the best way possible. Demons 2 follows it up, and I don't want to spoil Demons 1 for you, so this is hard. I'm looking over we're looking over some notes and shit here, good old internet. But Demons 2 takes place in like a high-rise apartment building, but it is like fully like auto, like everything, like computers run everything.
Okay.
So if I remember right, I'm not gonna lie to anyone here, I've seen Demons 2 a handful of times, but it's been at least probably 5 years. I'm guessing around the 5-year range since I've seen it last.
Right.
Which that doesn't sound like a long time, but it's long
when you're
enough
watching so much shit.
Yeah, you forget shit. So basically, the whole place gets infected, gets shut down, like lockdown. But then the demon outbreak starts. So there's all these tenants basically locked in this apartment building with fucking demons coming everywhere, and they have to try to find a way out. That's the gist of Demons 2. Probably the most iconic scene that I can think in my head, there's a scene where they get to the downstairs parking garage underneath the building, and they can't get out, obviously, because they're trying to find a way, and demons just come out of everywhere. So many demons. It's a massacre. They're killing demons, killing people. It's just like, I'm sure shooting that scene was an absolute blast.
Yeah, you'd have to imagine.
It's so extreme. You're just like jumping on cars, fighting demons. So much makeup. So many people made up and stuff like that. It just takes. Demons is better than Demons 2. If we're gonna do I don't want to do too many comparisons with these sequels.
Right.
But Demons 2 takes what Demons 1 does and does like a great sequel.
Right, it's a different environment, but it's the same like concept, I guess. So.
Basically, both of them are about being locked in somewhere when basically like an outbreak, some sort of crazy demonic outbreak takes place. And
right.
The people, it's almost the same premise, just different. It's like a different coat of paint.
Yeah.
Because the movie theater gets completely sealed up so they can't get out of the movie theater either.
Right.
It's like a giant theater. It's like a huge like old 2-floor theater. Very traditional.
Yeah.
And I don't know what city it's supposed to be in. Obviously somewhere in Italy, but yeah. But any kind of like scratch or any kind of thing like that, you start to get. It's almost like zombies, but you start to get possessed.
Yeah.
So but yeah, so it's easy to infect, like, just like zombies. Like things multiply very quickly.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. So, but they can survive a lot of damage, which is nice. You get their arms cut off, they get this ripped off, but I don't know. I mean, this is the one that I said number 10 was going to be the hardest for me because there were so many I almost wanted to put Night of the Demons 2 in there because Night of the Demons 2 is fucking amazing. That was one I was trying to find to watch.
Yeah.
Couldn't find it anywhere.
Yeah, that one I saw, Jesus Christ, when I was like a sophomore in high school.
Me and Jared watched it together once when we were older, and we both fucking loved it.
Yeah.
Fright Night 2 was close, too.
I've never seen Fright Night 2.
Fright Night 2 is, I think, very underrated, actually. Very good film. But that was...
I think the first one's underrated.
I agree. That was one of when I was growing up, that was like a really early horror film for me that I saw. And I loved it because it had everything I loved about horror. Yeah. Vampires, werewolves, fucking, everything. So yeah. I know we're getting off. That was kind of like I was kind of rolling all that into my Demons too because number 10 was easily the hardest that I had to figure out because it's like it's that final one. You're like,
yeah, you're like
put so many in here. Like, what am I supposed to do? But yeah, Demons 2. If you're a fan of like Evil Dead, if you're a fan of stuff like that, Demons 2 is. I hate to say it takes it to the next level because the Evil Dead is obviously insane. Right. But both Demons films are pretty fucking insane, to be honest. The shit that I don't want to spoil it for you, but at one point something crawls out of someone's back and runs away laughing. I mean, it's just batshit.
Yeah.
So that's my number 10. I don't have a lot more to say about it, and I'm going to keep it. I have a little bit, but I'm going to keep it that way because we're going to have to watch it.
Yeah.
This is one, if you haven't seen it, I can't go too, because you haven't seen Demons either, so it's like I can't explain really.
That could be like a good double feature. Like
I could watch both of them again.
Like how we do the underrated films, how we do like the two. That could be its whole, like the Demons series underrated or whatever. Because I mean, a lot of people have, because obviously I haven't seen them. You know.
To be honest, I used to think a lot of people had seen those films, and then like when I went to school for special effects and things like that,
they're like, "What are you talking about?"
Yeah, it's like I forget how. A lot of the people that I went to school, though, for special effects, though, were the most fucking basic fans.
Oh, really? Yeah.
Or they were, like, really into, like, more fantasy stuff, too, and I'm just like...
Yeah.
Like, have you seen this? No. Have you heard of this? No. I was like,
yeah. I mean, there's more effects than just horror films. But I mean, I guess if you're going to Tom Savini's school... you know...
You would think that maybe... I don't even think some of the people there had ever seen, like, some of the shit he's in, like, Maniac or anything like that. Like, I guess that's... Maniacs, I guess some of these films we're talking about now are pretty underrated nowadays when I really think about it.
Yeah, no one talks about Maniac besides us.
I think Maniac turns 40 this year. 40 years. I think it's 81, isn't it? Or is it 82?
It's 80. It's 82, I think.
Is it 82?
I think
okay.
It's tough I just watched it in Search of Darkness or whatever when I finally watched that, but I can't remember what year it was.
It's definitely... Because he did it... Yeah, I probably would... Might have been filmed in 81 because he did Burning. He did The Burning. Right. And I assume he went from The Burning right to Maniac, if I were to remember right. We're just saying there'll be a little horror history in this. If we get a little sidetracked, it's all horror history today. So,
82.
Is it 82? You must have did it right.
Oh no! Hold on. What? 1980.
I was gonna say it was 80 or 81. It's old.
Jesus. Yeah, 80.
So
Jesus.
he did that right after Friday the 13th, and probably right in between The Burning.
Yeah.
Man, Friday the 13th.
Legend.
Maniac to The Burning. God.
Yeah.
Anyways, I think we should get on to yours because some of these films there's gonna be more talk. There's gonna be a little more chatter.
Yeah, some of mine are a little bit shorter, but I don't know because it just depends. Like the ones that I know that you haven't seen, I took like more notes on.
Okay.
And the ones that you have seen, or the ones I wrote like a couple sentences or. One, I just wrote like 4 words on what it was because I know for sure it's definitely going to be on your list, I would imagine.
Okay.
But for my number 10, we alluded to it earlier. Jared's pick for his favorite sequel of all time. My number 10 is Psycho 2.
Okay.
And so, as I said at the beginning of this, my criteria for like this bottom part of the list is definitely not as good as the original. And a lot of these ones at the bottom part of the list are a lot better than they had any reason to be. Like Psycho 2. How did this work? How was this a good idea? How did this get greenlit? Like this was...
How many?
This was like a year or two after Hitchcock died. It's like they were waiting for him to die to make this movie. But yeah, like I don't like there's no reason like you just say it out loud, Psycho 2, and you're like this just has to be a joke. Like you know what I mean?
I'm gonna spoil it. I've never seen Psycho 3, 4, and then what was the other one? I still need to see Psycho 3 and 4.
Well, there's Psycho 3 and 4, and then there was the Bates Motel series.
Well, I didn't see Bates Motel, even though it's got that one actress I think is fucking so hot in it.
Yeah.
From the film I just let you guys watch. Me or
the Dying Girl, yeah. But yeah, Psycho 2, this shouldn't work. Because Psycho should have never really been a franchise. Like, it was never
No, it was a perfect standalone film, in my opinion.
Yeah. But if there was a sequel to follow it up, Psycho 2 would be a good one. I haven't seen 3 or 4 either. Okay. But Jared says that they're terrible and not even to worry about it.
I've read so many. Like, I've read like, Horror Hound did a retrospective on the Psycho series. And that was before I'd seen 2. And... I don't know. They really. Some people love them. Like I've read I know the synopsis of all of them, but it's one of those ones. I think I have them all on VHS, and I just haven't popped them in.
Yeah.
The other ones, I don't know. It's one of those things you're like, I'll watch it someday. I'll get to it.
But yeah, this was made right in the middle of the 80s slasher craze.
Which is crazy.
So it kind of plays like a slasher movie too. Like it's really weird. And I mean, I guess Psycho started the slasher kind of thing.
Basically.
But, you know, I don't know. It's one of those films that's like so different from the original, but it still has the main character, obviously. It's still Norman Bates, played by Anthony Perkins again.
It's awesome. Like, think how many years went by and they got him back.
Right, and then the film, I think it's supposed to take place like the same amount of time from the original film.
I can't remember.
It's something like that. It's definitely close because it takes place like in the 80s.
Right.
Not Jennifer Tilly, but the other Tilly sister is in this, and she's very good as well. She kind of plays like Norman's like girlfriend type thing in this.
Right.
She's very good. There's not too much really to say about it other than the fact that it's just shocking that it works and everything about it works. Jared gave it 5 stars on Letterboxd. Like, he thinks it's like right up there with the original. I don't think it's that good.
No.
Like, I think that's a bit of a stretch.
As I'm getting my COVID cough, thinking about it, I'm dying.
And one thing about the film that's like a pet peeve for me is like the film straight up starts with a recap of the first film, and it's like, why do you need to remind us of what we're not watching? It's like, I wish I was like, even when you're watching Psycho 2, you're like, damn, like, I wish I was watching Psycho right now.
I feel like maybe they did that because the gap, like, you have to think that there are definitely people that probably watched Psycho 2, as crazy as this is to say and sound, that had not seen Psycho 1 yet, possibly. There had to be those, like, girlfriend and boyfriend going on a date to the theater like that night, and they're like, Psycho 2, I heard about the first one, but I never seen it, let's just go.
And I guess you also have to think is there's no home video at the time.
Right.
Or at least none that's accessible. I mean, this was at the time where most people didn't even own a VCR. And, like, you'd have to go and rent a VCR from the video store. I don't have the year written down on when this came out, but I think it's, like, mid-'80s. So, VHS had either just came out or it's, like, relatively new.
And if you're going to go to buy one, what?
Like, a VCR was, like, $300 or some shit.
Tape, some of the tapes. Like, I remember seeing ads, like, old ads for, like, Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which sold a shit ton of videos back in the day. That was, like, one of the biggest horror, like, made a ton of money, if I remember right, on just video sales. But I think they had ads was like $59.99 or something for a copy of this.
And this is like a little bit of a sidetrack, but like I watched that last Blockbuster documentary or whatever.
I haven't seen it yet.
And they talk about how like back then, like they thought that you could charge like $70 or $100 for a VHS because they're like, shit, well, like you can keep the movie forever. Like you're gonna go pay $10 to see it at the cinema. You can have it at your home for $100. Like at the time, they're like, I mean, they didn't know that was a horrendous deal, but like, I don't know.
I think just being able to own something like that for the first time is like, or basically the first time, it's like that. Yeah, I mean, like, if they watch it 100 times, it didn't cost them shit, or you know what I mean, or if they watch it once a year.
Yeah.
Nowadays, we've kind of almost gone back to that because now we'll get off the sidetrack here, but. You go to rent, like I said, I go Night of the Demons too. It's like you go to rent something, and the rentals now for some of the films are like on Amazon or Apple or something. He's like, yeah, $8.99. There's this. I'm like, fuck, I can go find a used if I'm lucky,
find a used DVD
for that price or whatever. Like the digital rentals are like people.
It's killer, man. Like it's like $4 or $5. So I mean,
people
like
complained about Blockbuster's prices, but like you had days to watch it. You sometimes a week to watch it, and this you're paying. 5 to 8 to 10, or if you own it digitally, you're paying 15 to 20 sometimes.
Right. And like the rentals, it's like the rentals you have it for 48 hours
usually, yeah.
Yeah, and it's like once you start it, it's like that's it a lot of the time.
Right.
So I don't know, but yeah, Psycho 2, very good. It has some actually like moments that like make me like cringe, sort of. Like one thing, like whenever it's in a movie, I like wince is when like someone has like their hands like on the knife and it like goes like that like every time. And there's a good part where like a lady's like stabbed through the mouth and like it's a good like mystery element because people are still like, is it Norman or is it not Norman?
Right.
Or is he cured or is he not cured? And then I don't know. I remember like there's like a religious element to it. Like he works at like this like diner or whatever, and the owners are like real like fucked up, and like they try to mess with him and shit. Like they'll put like fake notes on because he's like a cook or whatever. They'll put fake notes on the little rotating thing that's like mother says blah 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 to like fuck with him and shit. So I don't know. It's just a good film. I would definitely recommend it.
Watch Psycho, obviously, if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, obviously watch Psycho. If you're going to watch one, watch Psycho.
We're doing a sequels thing. We're like, it'd be better if you just watch all the fucking originals of these instead. But as we're ending that up, though, Psycho, the first time I ever saw Psycho, I'm not going to say too much in this, but that was actually one of the few films to make me jump a couple times. I didn't see Psycho till I was a little bit older, and I actually got to see it in the theater.
Oh, that's amazing.
And I was like, and I remember the scene in the theater when he rolls around the doorway and it's shot down.
Oh yeah,
it happened so quick. And normally I really don't do jump scares. I don't get like nothing. I just like the stories in the films. But like that when he rolled around, it was so fluid. Like something about my body, I was like it like shocked me,
Right.
And I remember that was like one of the first times I'd been shocked by anything in a long time. I was like, wow, like that. Yeah, man, this shit fucking
the master of suspense, my man.
And I've watched a lot of Hitchcock since, actually. I have a few at home I need to watch. But anyways, let's I'm getting a little sidetracked. So should I do my number 9, I guess?
It's your number 9, yeah.
Well, we kind of talked about this earlier, and I had a feeling that you kind of knew that's what you put it there. But the film that we watched together recently, The Exorcist Part 3.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, The Exorcist Part 3. I was trying to think. I was like, oh, fuck. What's the? Well, they called it. The book was called Legion, but I guess they actually don't call it that. They just call it Exorcist 3.
It's Exorcist. There is a subtitle.
That's what I thought there was.
I can look it up while you say some stuff.
I watched this for the first time. I think like they made a fucking Facebook status about it, and I don't even fucking do that. It's like an end of the year thing that I liked. Me and Jared watched The Exorcist 3 together, and we were both surprised at how good it was. But it was hard for me to remember certain parts of it. I remember the main parts. I guess we watched it too, so...
Right, we watched this one together in prepreparation for this list. Because we were like, shit, it's been so long since either of us have seen it.
Had you seen it? Oh, you said you saw it before.
I saw it like many years ago.
Okay.
And I can't... it doesn't say the subtitle. I thought there was a subtitle, but...
Exorcist 3, though, was basically the film that was supposed to kind of rewrite the whole, after Exorcist 2 debacle, which
right.
I did rewatch The Exorcist 2 for only the second time in my life, sometime in the winter, and because I have the full Exorcist box set, like of
right.
all of them, and Exorcist 2, it's just a weird fucking film.
Right. Yeah, it's definitely like a weird like art house kind of thing. Yeah. Like it's not like
I talked about it with you after I watched it. I had to look up how old Linda Blair was because there's so many scenes where she's fucking it's just her nipples and her tits and I'm just like, my God, like and you could tell they shot it from an angle and things. I'm just like,
yeah.
I'm just like, oh yeah, total 70s art house shit right there. But Exorcist 3 trying to right the wrongs that. With Exorcist 2, I'm actually gonna get my phone because I'm gonna do another thing with the Exorcist. I'm actually getting a Letterboxd for this. We're so professionals with this, but yeah, Exorcist 3 starts off a little slower than I remembered. You can definitely tell because William Peter Blatty directed this,
right?
And he also wrote the book, so you can tell that like the dialogue is very like. An author tried to, Yeah,
you can definitely tell when it is an author doing a film because the dialogue is how it would be written in a book. It's not how people actually talk.
And because I remember your wife was watching it and she's like, I'm pretty sure I remember saying, I can't follow, I'm like struggling to follow this or like, what the fuck? Because like the way that the detective and the priest were talking was just like, it was almost like a war of words, like a pissing contest between them. Like the way they were structuring sentences and doing things. Yeah. And like I get that, but like I'm like, wow, this is like I'm following this, but if you were Joe Schmo at the theater on a Friday going to see this, I feel like maybe you would be a little turned off by that. But what so what are some of your thoughts before I dive?
I mean both the actors pull it off, and I mean like the priest and George C. Scott's character, they pull it off. I mean, a lot of times, like, I remember sitting there, just like, are they supposed to be best friends or what? Because they're like, I don't like the way they were just like talking, like as you said, it was like a war of words, but then like
it's almost
revealed.
like a one-upsmanship, like almost like, who's gonna get the win today on this?
Right.
Or win in this
but then it's like
situation?
revealed that like they've been best friends for like ever or whatever, and then of course Brad Dourif is great. The guy that played Damien from the first film is in this as well. They both play the Gemini killer. It's like a split personality kind of scenario, and it actually switches actors when he's doing it. It's just really good shit, and Brad Dourif's underrated too.
Seriously,
but
some of his as we were watching this, I was like, damn, for like a band or something. There's a couple like
but there's good
sound clips, like
there's
super good hard sound clips in this. But there's not enough. It's crazy because the last 25 minutes it goes balls to the fucking walls.
Yeah.
Like, all sorts of weird shit happens. Obviously, the huge. Crazy ending between when they're trying to almost not really perform an exorcism, like they try a little bit, but almost just like the war of words between the priest goes, he gets all, I don't want to
right
spoil.
Yeah.
There's gonna be some spoilers in these guys. We haven't said that yet, but you should figure. The priest basically gets thrown up against the wall and his skin like melted to it and all this shit. The cop comes in and it's kind of like them going back and forth. It's a really cool story that he jumped in, that the Gemini killer jumped in to his body, Father Karras's
the priest,
his body at the end of The Exorcist. Really wild story when you think about it, like how like insane that is.
Well, because like you thought at the end of The Exorcist that like he was possessed by Pazuzu or whatever, and he was like, oh yeah, he killed the demon or whatever, but it was actually this Gemini killer, and he's been in prison like this whole time, like freaking out. Well, it was like a mental hospital, it wasn't a prison.
Right.
But
it's been in isolation for fucking
however many years it
God.
was. Of course, it has one of the most classic jump scares of all time. In the film, which I didn't get the full effect of it because I knew it was coming.
That's
like the entire time.
It was not that I was waiting for it. We kept waiting for it. We hyped it up to Emma.
We were hyping it up, and then when it happened, we were all just sitting there, just like straight faced. We were like, "Yep, there it was." Like none of us. It didn't get any of us because we knew exactly when it was gonna be.
Yeah, but it's insane. If you've seen it, you know what we're talking about. Don't look it up if you haven't seen it.
Yeah, we won't spoil the jump scare for you here.
There's the one scene that I will spoil when so the Gemini killer can go into other people's bodies at some point, and like he possesses the people that are basically starting to like lose their faculties, like their minds, like the people that are actually not in solitary in like the hospital, part of the hospital.
Yeah.
So he possesses that old woman who takes the nurse's uniform.
Yeah.
And there's that great scene with the ominous music, and she's holding she's holding the bag, and she's riding to the, riding over to the police officer's family's house.
Yeah.
And the police officer's trying to find out. There's that crazy scene where he's freaking out. They steal take a police car, and they're racing all through downtown Washington D.C. And then they just cuts back to that woman. She's just like ominous music holding the bag, and I'm just like, man, what a great! It's just like so chaotic back and forth. They get to the house, and he gets there, him and the cop, and the old woman's inside, because they're like, oh, the Gemini killer's going to come kill my family, essentially.
Right.
And spoiler, but then they're sitting there, and, like, the woman basically, she asks for something, like, basically breaks, almost like acts like she's not possessed, like he basically unpossesses her, leaves her body, whatever. And then, spoiler, she pulls out the massive fucking what are those even for? They're like giant shears, but they're for cutting bone, probably cutting body parts, right?
Yeah.
Like some kind of medical.
It has the hardest shot of all time,
and it's literally almost around the daughter's neck. Like the blades are so close. I'm like, wow, it's a crazy. And it was still moving.
Yeah.
And the old ass grandmother, who I think at the beginning of the film is a racist, right? I think there's
something like that.
She's not crazy. I think she says something against Jewish people, or says something fucking. I was like, oh wow. And she just happens to grab the daughter or granddaughter, pull her out of there like lightning speed before she gets her whole entire head cut off in front of her whole family. And then the woman's just, if I remember, she's just screaming with the fucking shears, right?
Yeah. I was flexing the entire time. It was absurd.
And 2 seconds before that, some of they possessed a few other people. They're crawling on the walls or the ceilings and shit.
Yeah.
It just all of a sudden it goes. we got about a half hour left of the movie. Let's hit the fucking insanity switch, and then it's like boom, boom, boom,
right.
boom.
And that's one of the two reasons I left it off of my list was, one, I had asked you about it, and you told me you were putting it on yours, so I was like, all right, I'll leave it.
That was the only one that we knew.
Yeah.
You know.
So I was like, I'll leave it an honorable mention, but it would have been in the 9 to 10 range on mine anyway. And the second reason, which is what you just mentioned, is it's very like unbalanced. I guess
it's one of those things. The good outweighs the bad for me.
Oh, for sure.
Because it's fucking the scenes that go way off, like are really good. And I don't know if it's because it was 1990 when this came out, and the MPA was kind of been destroying films. Horror, it was kind of slowly starting to get almost, another year. It was going to get to that dark phase where there really was about 3 to 4 years where not much was coming out.
Right.
Or a lot of it would be like full moon stuff or rare straight to video stuff like that. Like it really, the big horror boom in the 80s.
This isn't really like, it's not really like gory, but it's just like a lot of it's like shocking and like crazy. So like there's not really much that like, what are you going to cut it out for? Because it's crazy. Like it's not like it's anything like...
I think the gory, there's a little gore at the end. When the priest's face gets like melted off, or like you see like ripped flesh and shit like that. They had to throw a little in there for us.
But the stuff with the scissors, like there's no blood, there's no.
But yeah, just creepy. There's a good vibe, good atmosphere. I think maybe tonally because the book, from what I've heard, is a little bit more of a straightforward serial killer cop type thing. That I think that they were trying, you obviously use the Exorcist name, so they were trying to like tack on, because I'm pretty sure if I remember right, the whole end of that movie was completely tacked on at the studio's request. Because initially it was supposed to be a much different film. But then they're like, no, we need to have basically an Exorcist thing, and they had to rewrite things and stuff like that. Which I'm very surprised, because William Peter Blatty directed it. I'm surprised he was okay with doing all of that.
Right, yeah, because writers are very protective of their work.
Yeah, so, but maybe, he probably was like, well, I know I can do something better than the fucking Exorcist 2, so...
Or maybe they're like, hey, if you do it the way you shoot it, the film's going to make X amount of dollars. If you have this crazy ending, word's going to spread and you're going to make, like, so much more. And he was like, well, fuck it, I'll do it.
I definitely think, I haven't read the book, that's why I asked if there was the subtitle, because it was Legion is what it was called. The book was called. The book wasn't called Exorcist at all. It was just called Legion.
Okay.
So, but that's why I asked about the subtitle. But I think that I don't really, to be honest, I don't really know how successful this one was in the box office, because I guess it came out at a weird time, kind of.
Yeah.
But it has a pretty big cult following nowadays. Like I see a lot of people really like it, and for good reason. I mean, I think they could have sprinkled probably in like the middle part of it a little more horror, because I think it becomes very much a detective kind of film. So it's slow. It's going to be rough for some people, I feel like, but I think overall it holds up real well.
Right.
I was going to say one thing before we get off this. The one that this is like an honorable mention for this number, because I told you that I would watch some of the other Exorcist sequels. Exorcist: The Beginning, I watched, and I wanted to rewatch it again, because I almost could have put it on this, because Exorcist: The Beginning was one of the most shocking films I watched in a long time. Like, I didn't expect it to be what it was.
Right.
It's shot by Rennie Harlan, who did, I think he did let me look at his thing. I think he did Lethal Weapon. He did Nightmare on Elm Street 4, which I love. He did Cliffhanger, Deep Blue Sea. He did Die Hard 2. So he decides...
Mostly action films.
He decides to direct...
Exorcist 4.
He did 12 Rounds. Isn't that with John Cena?
John Cena, yep.
Oh my god, what a career this guy's had. But he's like, I'm gonna do Exorcist: The Beginning. And I put it in. I watched this maybe this November, December. And I was just like shocked by like there's like crazy imagery of like people being hung on crosses and insane amounts of gore, and like the whole ending is just batshit fucking crazy. And like this came out in 2004 in theaters, and I'm watching this, I'm like, how?
Yeah.
I was like, literally, this film, it's like if Lucio Fulci directed The Exorcist.
Oh yeah.
And I'm just like, how did this even get made? I feel like the Exorcist series, I still have to watch. I looked it up because there's the 2 prequels. I still have to watch Dominion, which is the other prequel. But I feel like the Exorcist series, because of the name value of the original, they're allowed each of the films to get away with a lot.
Right.
Where, like, if it was just a random possession film with no name, no really legacy,
yeah,
some of this shit would have never got passed or never got put through.
Yeah.
But because they're like, we're going to put the Exorcist on this, okay, it's probably going to be successful. Either do what you want or let's go as crazy as possible.
Right, yeah. It was the first horror film to be nominated for all those Oscars and stuff.
Yeah.
So,
but people should watch. If people want to see something insane, we might have to watch that together. Because I guarantee the opening scenes. I remember taking video of it. I was like, what the fuck? And we've seen a lot. I've seen a lot, but I just didn't expect.
Right. From an Exorcist film. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
But so I could almost, if I were to rewatch both of those, Exorcist the beginning might have went in there.
So this will the number 9 will have like an asterisk on it. So we might need an update. That could be another double feature. The Exorcist prequels.
We could do both.
Jesus Christ.
We can we got some time.
We got some, yeah.
Some time before Halloween and all that stuff. But I really would I'd like you to see that Exorcist the beginning. And it's cool. It's always cool to watch something we haven't seen for the first time, like Dominion, because I've never seen it.
Right.
But I think both of those were made because at the same time because of legal rights, because they were fighting. Both production companies had somewhat rights to the series, so they were both trying to rush.
Movie.
Yeah, they were both trying to rush a film out, but then they found they were both legally going to be able to release them. So it's just two Exorcist prequels within 1 year of each other.
That's crazy.
All right. Well,
speaking of people on crosses, I'm obviously a big vampire guy. So I wanted at least one vampire film on the list. And this one I know for sure that you probably have never seen this film in the series or any film in the series.
Okay.
But yeah, I just wanted to have a vampire film on the list. Obviously, Blade 2 is an action film because that would have been an easy one to do.
Right.
And the original Lugosi Dracula, Dracula's daughter, I wouldn't really necessarily consider that a great sequel.
I've seen that once. I watched that once real late at night.
But the Hammer series...
I've seen some Hammer films.
Has some Dracula sequels. It's the longest running like Dracula series.
Christopher Lee's a beast.
Christopher Lee, dog.
Peter Cushing in there?
Well, this film does not have Peter Cushing in it.
Okay.
But for my number 9, I have Dracula Has Risen from the Grave, which is the third film in the franchise. You're holding your fingers up. You're like, I may have seen this.
Because I have a few different Hammer collections. I have to get on the old Letterboxd. The most of these Letterboxd in fucking a year.
But yeah. But yeah, this is the third film in the franchise. Obviously, there was Horror of Dracula and then Dracula Prince of Darkness.
I've seen... What were the ones you just said? My brain's...
Dracula Prince of Darkness was the second one, and Horror of Dracula was the first Hammer one. That's the one with Peter Cushing.
I've seen
when they have like the big like grand table and he jumps and then pulls the drapes down. Right. Yeah, that's from the first one. But yeah.
Why do they not have Horror of...
Miles is doing something on Letterboxd.
Fuck, Letterboxd is failing me. I'm gonna get on. That's cool. Let's just look up Hammer Dracula films. I can't even spell. Look at how professional we are.
Yeah. But yeah, this was the third film in the franchise. Obviously, again, this was back in the olden days. There's no home video and stuff like that. So there's some like weird continuity issues in it. Like the very beginning of the film, Dracula is not alive yet, obviously. Because it has to be like resurrected or whatever. But there's like already like a dead body or whatever. And it's just like, how did this dead body get here? It's like in like a bell tower in like this church. And she's just like hanging down there. And obviously he was dead at the beginning of the previous films. So it was like, how did this random body show up or whatever? But
I've seen the Satanic Rites of Dracula, which was 73. That's one of the later ones.
Right. That's the second to last one, I think, if not the last one.
Because Legend of the Seven Golden Vampires was on there, but I always wanted to see that. I never watched that one.
Yeah.
I've seen...
And I haven't seen all of them, so this could be...
Prince of Darkness. I think I've seen this one. But if I did, it was one time, and I can't remember much of it. So,
yeah, there's some weird lore issues in it as well. Like, you can see Dracula's reflection in, like, the water and stuff, but he's not supposed to have a reflection.
Right.
So it's definitely a flawed film, But I think that, like, out of the Hammer films, besides the first one, I think this one's pretty much, like, on par with the first one. This would be the one to see out of the ones that I've seen.
I wanted to see Dracula AD 1972 because I haven't. I heard a lot of people like that.
It's actually a lot better than you would think it was. Like, you just, again, you hear the title, Dracula AD 1972, and it sounds absurd.
I wanted to watch that one.
But yeah, it like deals like with the reincarnation of Van Helsing, like Peter Cushing's character in it. He's like a detective or whatever, and like there's all this crazy funk music playing and stuff. But
Satanic Rites of Dracula is really weird too, because I had that on a collection and I watched that.
Yeah, that one's and that one's also like public domain, so it's always on like those 50 movie packs or whatever.
Right. I think I have it on a couple different things. Yeah. That's a good choice, and that's actually a good because I have some other Hammer like horror collections, like with like one of their Mummy films, like some of the different stuff that they've done.
Right.
I really want that book. They have a book, Women of Hammer Horror, that's basically like a fucking softcore book.
Yeah, I'm familiar with it.
Okay, my buddy's real familiar with it, guys. I'm a little familiar.
Yeah, it's called like it's basically like centerfolds of like all the women that were like the stars of these films.
If anyone wants to get us both that book and just reach out to the show, we'll PayPal you the money or something. Just send it. I had a chance to buy it a couple times. I don't know why I didn't, but I think it's like $40-$50 book, which isn't bad, but it's still one of those things like when you're like randomly see it, you're like, I don't want to spend that money.
Yeah, but this was another one I took maybe too many notes on because I didn't know if you'd be familiar with it at all. But a fun fact about it is that Christopher Lee was like, this is only the third film and he's already sick of playing Dracula. He was basically like guilt-tripped into being in it because he was like, well, if you don't want to do this movie, like, all these people aren't going to be able to work and whatever. So, like, he was basically like, you have, like, an obligation to, like, do this or whatever. So, like, which kind of sucks. And then, because, like, even in the second film, in Prince of Darkness, he, like, refused to speak any of his lines because he thought they sucked so bad. Literally, in the second film, Dracula does not speak at all. He just, like, grunts and shit. In this one, he has very few lines, but it sort of works to the film's advantage because, like, everything he says, Christopher Lee was on board with it.
Yeah.
And everything he says has, like, more weight to it because of so few lines that he says. I mean, he's in the film quite a bit, but he doesn't, like, say anything. And, yeah, I think it works in the film's favor. But really what makes this film work for me in comparison to some of the other ones is the story of it. The main character's name is Paul, and a lot of times, like in these Dracula films or vampire films in general, your main character is like a priest or a Van Helsing type guy, but Paul is an atheist. So he doesn't believe in any of this shit. So it makes it really hard for him to fight Dracula because he's
no protection. There's no faith. There's no faith.
Right, and at one point he's dating like a priest's daughter.
Classic.
And so like there's like this dinner scene where like I can't remember exactly how it goes down, but basically Paul doesn't say the prayer or whatever, and he's like, "Oh well, I'm an atheist," and the priest like flips out and kicks him out of the house or whatever.
Can you imagine dating? I would just say, "Oh, I didn't know I had to say it" or something. Like that'd be the one time I would lie. Like if I really was into this woman, I wouldn't tell a priest to be like, "Yeah, I'm an atheist. I'm trying to bang your daughter." Like it doesn't go over well.
Yeah, at least he's being honest, I guess. But like. I don't know. It wouldn't work out well for most people.
No, that wouldn't be... I would think of some way to avoid whatever that was that just happened.
Right. But yeah, he clearly does not have the advantage over Dracula. At the beginning of the film, he doesn't even know what vampires are or who Dracula is.
That's hilarious.
Anyway, so...
I don't know if I've seen this one then. Maybe I've seen... Because I've seen 3 of them at least. But I don't know if I've seen this one now. They used to have that pack. They had a pack in like the... mid 2000s, when I was buying stuff or I was getting really, really into horror, that had 4 of them on it. Do you remember that?
I have a 4. It's like the Dracula like 4-pack. That's what I have.
Okay, yeah. That's what I always like. I would see it and wanted to get it, and then I just didn't. And then I'd seen a couple of them just through other things, rental or whatever. I think back when I had Netflix discs, I saw one of them too. I threw one on there or whatever and watched it, but. The good old days, man. The good old days.
I won't get too much more into it, but there's this one great scene where Paul stakes him, But since he doesn't have, like, since he wasn't, like, praying, like, in his heart or whatever, like, during it happened, Dracula survives the staking, pulls it out, and throws it back at him.
Oh, my God.
It's just, like, a great scene.
Yeah, I definitely haven't seen this one, because I feel like all that would be, like, super memorable.
Yeah, and this came out, I think it was either the same year or the year after the MPAA started. So this film is actually rated G by the MPAA.
Tight.
So either they didn't watch it and just slapped something on it, or they didn't know what the fuck they were doing. Because there's actually, like, a lot of, like, violence, stabbing. There's, like, blood coming out of the eyes and palements.
I was gonna say, like, most of the stuff, like, from the Hammer stuff, there's a little bit more blood, gore, like, not in, like, the way that people think of nowadays, but, like, at the time.
Yeah. And yeah, like I said, I think it's just good because of the human element of it. I mean, a lot of times, like, in these films, you're getting, like, the Jonathan Harker story where it's like, oh, I'm going to go to Dracula's castle or whatever.
Right,
but, like,
right.
this one is just, like, so, like, different from all that kind of stuff. And yeah, I just wanted something unique to put on the list, so that's my number 9.
That was a good... I suppose... I don't know. I haven't really thought... I try to... when we do these things, I try to really not think about, like, what... Yeah, I guess maybe you think about what I'm going to say more on my list, but I try to just leave it open, so I kind of want to be surprised to see where you put stuff or what happens. So it's fun for me too, you know.
And also, one last thing that I love about this film, and you can probably attest to this too, from being in effects school, and I mean, I've made effects blood as well. This was done before they really got the blood recipe right.
Right.
So it's one of those films where the blood is just the bright red.
I love, like, there's something about that though that I love. Like, I still love.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I think it's great.
Yeah.
Like, because like, what is it? Like, you got to put. They didn't use the green. Like, they just used the red dye or whatever. So it doesn't look like actual blood at all. But it looks. I mean, I like it. Yeah.
I love 70s, like, the super... It just... I don't know. I think it worked with the way that films in the 60s and 70s, like... Well, once they started adding a little gore in the late 60s or whatever. When I mean gore, I mean a little bit of blood. Like, there was enough...
Right, yeah.
Because that blood stands out, like, a mile away. Like, you're looking at, like, the early, like, Herschel Gordon Lewis films and stuff.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
Super bright, you know, blood red and stuff like that. It's, like, shocking in a weird way because it's so unnatural... But it looks cool, and like the way everything's shot in film, and the film's a little bit gritty back then because it's just like, the style's just a little more grit. Just all of it, love it.
Yeah, that's my number 9.
Number 9, all right. Well, number 8, I actually don't have a ton to say about this, but I'm hoping that you. It's funny as I'm saying this. Oh, my top horror sequel, but number 8 is a film that I've only watched once. And I watched it with Jared.
Okay.
And it was so shocking to both of us, and we had such a fucking good-ass time watching this that my experience watching it with him was almost more memorable than the film. Because, as you know, we're laughing, we're screaming, especially when you get a really crazy gore film on. The Fly 2.
Which I haven't seen, but you've told the story about how you guys have watched it together.
Yeah. The Fly 2... was directed by Chris Wallace, who he did the special effects for Cronenberg's The Fly. So I'm not real sure how he got this gig directing this one. Should have probably looked that up. But basically, it's just a batshit crazy film. And the special effects, obviously, okay, so it was done, you know, like I just said, by the guy who did the effects for, the guy who directs Fly 2 did the special effects for The Fly with Cronenberg.
Right.
So, it's going to be special effects heavy. And it obviously, I mean, The Fly is special effects heavy. But this one, the memorable part to me are not the story, it's all the crazy shit that happens, like... They have scenes of like the full fly creature like walking around and he's stomping his feet real loud. It's like a hard like menacing
and there's like
scene.
multiple flies in it, aren't there?
God, don't quote me on this. I think there's just the one main guy.
Oh, okay.
But it's like it's like so much imagery in my mind of just scenes. Like I can't remember every part of the story, but it's like these crazy images where it's like the fly's like stomping his thing on, his head's turning, he's like looking for people to fucking kill and stuff, and it's just like obviously me and Jared are losing it. Yeah. There's a scene where a guy opens a door, and to try to go out like this walkway, and the fly throws a body sideways. Like the door opens and a body's flying sideways at the door, and the guy just goes like this and just goes and shuts the door real quick as his body is just flying sideways. And I threw up. I mean, I basically was on the ground screaming and crying because it's just so 80s. It's so insane. There's a scene I think where the fly crushes someone under an elevator shaft or something, but body count's obviously ramped up. It's basically just a fucking...
It's more like a monster movie in the typical sense, where like the Cronenberg fly, like he's gradually turning into the fly, and it's a lot more like the emotional shit. And like when he becomes the fly, I mean, he's not rampaging through the town. You know what I mean? No. It's just like that one part where they have the final confrontation, but...
And that's like in this realm, like God, I wish like I'm looking at this and like I wish I remember the fucking story more. It's definitely one that I need to rewatch, but a lot of it is just the fucking crazy effects. Like I just had I almost feel guilty putting it on this list, but like I said, the experience of watching this with a person, it's that rare like viewing experience. You sit down and watch something for the first time, and like as you get older, as we are, like it's hard to get shocked or really impressed by a lot of things, even with certain old films, because you're like, damn, I've seen everything. Yeah. You know, which is also why this was so hard to put this fucking list together, because it's like, I really got to go back in my brain. Like, originally you put the list together, the first 5, 6, 7, zoom. You're like, okay, I got it. But then you really start thinking like, oh, fuck, there's like a zillion horror sequels, like, and I love a zillion horror sequels, like, what really, like, you know, and like this one for me, maybe I'm being a poser, but I saw it the one time, but I just have these images of the film. Like I know it stuck. Like, okay, the plot didn't stick, but I can see all these crazy images of what was going on in the film. So I'm like, that's kind of why I put it on this list, because it's just everything I love about like creature horror, right? Or like full on frontals of special effects. Because this was like the end of the '80s. A lot of stuff that was coming out, you know, even with like the Nightmare on Elm Streets and some of the stuff, Hellraiser was starting, like, the end of the 80s, even as horror was kind of, like, starting to slow down a little bit or die off.
It goes through phases, yeah.
The special effects were, like, had never been better. Like, some of the ones that come out, like, they're doing these full creatures or these giant elaborate scenes with, like, numerous characters and full makeups and all this, and I'm just, like, some of those, I'm just like, fuck, this is crazy. Because I know how long it took them a team to build all this stuff. Like, not even just, like, probably months and months and months of this shit, and it's just like, I think it was hard, you know, now with the CG and stuff where I look and I'm just like, man, like, I still feel like they could have pushed, which they are pushing with CG and practical together, but like, towards the end of the 80s and the early 90s, like, I just like thought some of the effects and the way they were shot were just phenomenal, dude. Yeah. But it's hard, you haven't seen this. Guess we're gonna have to throw another one on. You might as well.
This podcast is just becoming. Oh yeah, we should watch this and review it. That's just what this is becoming. But
it's becoming 10 more podcasts.
That's fine.
That's all right. But I don't. Unfortunately, because you have not seen it. Yeah. And me, it's all about the fucking memories. But like the vivid. I'll never forget that door scene. I can see it in my head. It's honestly, it's probably one of the most iconic things I've seen in the past 5 years, because that's like, it's not a jump scare, but it's one of those things like characters walking up the door, they open the door, and then it just opens like this, and the fly's standing down there and just goes like this with a body coming sideways, and it's just flying at the door, and I was just like,
you're just like, what am I watching?
Yeah. It just, I don't know, it's the little things, man.
Yeah. So my number 8 on my list, I wanted to have some newer films on mine. And this is sort of where it's getting to the part where, like, these films are pretty much on par with the original. Okay. Or you could argue that they're a little better or a little worse. My number 8, little bit of a weird choice. And one of the main reasons I wanted it on here, because this is another one where I watched it and I was just like, how is this good? Annabelle Creation.
Okay.
Is my number 8 on the list. Mainly because the first Annabelle is terrible.
So bad.
So terrible.
It was basically Rosemary's Baby Light.
Yeah.
Essentially is what that was.
So we went and we saw this in theaters. I've seen it a couple times since. But like we went into it because we were like, all right, whatever. There's no other horror films to watch on this Friday night. We'll watch Annabelle Creation.
Did it come out like in August? End of August?
It was like a weird, yeah. So we watched it, and I was like, sitting in the theater, I was like blown away, like how much better it was than the original.
So much better.
But when you compare it to like The Conjuring 1 and stuff like that, like it's about like on par, I would say. Yeah. But if you compare it to Annabelle, it's like a billion times better.
Okay, so there's 3 Annabelles now, right? Because I saw the third.
Right, and then there's Annabelle Comes Home,
which is almost a Conjuring film. I mean, they're all kind of whatever, but like because they're actually at the Warrens' house in that.
Right, versus she's like babysitting, like house sitting or whatever, and it's just like
I actually thought that was pretty fucking good too. To be honest, it was fun. Like,
I haven't seen it.
Oh, you haven't seen it?
No, I haven't seen that.
That was kind of like a haunted house film. So it's like each of them are different. But Creation has that fucking crazy scarecrow part at the end of it, doesn't it? The one where the scarecrow comes off in the barn or whatever. Right,
yeah, it's in the because you see it at the beginning of the film because like the premise of this one is like there's all these girls and they're like orphans and they go to the house of the guy who made the Annabelle doll. Right, and he's opening his house as like a foster home, sort of like repent for bringing this evil into the world because his it's not a spoiler, it happens in the first 2 minutes of the film, but his daughter is Annabelle, and she's hit by a car or whatever, so basically Annabelle's quote-unquote ghost or whatever was reaching out to them to put her spirit into this doll, but of course it was not actually her, it was a demon.
Right.
So to repent for that or whatever, he opens up his house. He was like he used to be a priest, or like he's a fallen priest or some shit. Right. And it's basically like the girl that like comes is like a nun, and she has like 5 or 6 girls that she's like the caretaker of. And yeah, but at the beginning of the film, they go into the barn, and there's like this creepy scarecrow thing, and the entire time you're just like, all right, well, when's this gonna come to life?
I love scarecrow stuff so much, and scarecrow like genre stuff is like very few and far between.
Oh yeah.
So I remember when that's like one of the most memorable parts to me, like more memorable than the doll, is just like that scene where they get the main girl gets trapped in the barn, right?
Right. Yeah.
And then the scarecrow starts to come to life, I think.
Because there's so many things in this film where they set it up and then you're just waiting for something to happen.
Right.
Because like very early on in the film, again, you see that the girl is the guy's wife who owns the house. She's like bedridden. And so you're like, all right, I can't wait to see what she looks like. She's obviously all fucked up.
Right.
There's the one girl has like cerebral palsy or whatever. She has some sort of illness where she can't really walk well. And they have like the old like wheelchair stair ramp thing that like goes up the stairs. So you're like, all right, I can't wait for someone to get launched off of that thing.
Right.
Like there's just like so many things in this film where like it builds upon the suspense well. And it's worth the payoff. Like a lot of times, like there's like, oh, it leads to nothing, or it sucks, or shit like comes out of nowhere, and there was no setup like at the beginning of the film to like even establish it.
I think they do that well in the third one too, which you haven't seen. They show a lot of like what you said, they set up for set pieces, things like this. You know things are going to happen. I think that even Creation is kind of, because it's set in that one main location, just like the third one's set in one main location. They're almost like just like good haunted house films,
right?
Which I don't know why the first one really wasn't like. I don't know. I don't think they knew what they were fucking doing with the first one, because it's all over the fucking place.
Yeah. And I mean, like, and again, if you look at the other films in the franchise, I mean, like, you've got The Nun, which was terrible.
The Nun. Okay, look. The Nun, when I watched that, what I saw was someone trying to make a cheesy Italian horror film. Like, that's what I saw. Some of the effects and some of the shit that they were doing, I was like, is this trying to be serious? Because I feel like it's trying to be a throwback to, like, weird 80s
Maybe
films.
I need to rewatch it, but I don't know.
If you watch it and don't... Like, the tone... As soon as I start watching, I got the tone, I'm like, there's got a little cheese to this. Like, it's not... I actually talked about The Nun with someone the other day, because it was... 10 years since the first Insidious came out the other day.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was like the decade, and like my friend was like, "Oh, this is my one of my friends in Pittsburgh is a big horror fan. Like, oh yeah, it's one of my favorite modern franchises. All this," and he's like, "Yeah, if you watch Insidious 1 and 2 together, it's a really good film." Because I feel like the first Insidious, I remember that hit the festivals and stuff like that first. It was when I was living in Pittsburgh actually. It came out. And I was like, wait, there's a lot of hype in the magazines, like even before it really started to get like trailers and stuff out, because it was like a slow burn. Like it started. Yeah. It was kind of a weird release. Like, I know we're getting a little off track, but it's all horror. We're all good. But it was like few theaters, a few more. Like it didn't have a modern release. So by the time I saw it, it had been mostly around the nation, but finally got to like the Midwest or East, whatever. And I remember seeing it, and I was like, the hype was just too high. Like, it was good.
Jared said the same thing. Like, I went into it with no hype. I don't know if I saw it, like, early on, but I saw it before everyone was talking about it. Because Jared saw Insidious 1 and 2 in the same day. And he saw Insidious... I mean, that had been a couple years since it was out at that point, so everyone was saying, oh, Insidious is great, so... He's not the biggest fan of those films because of the hype, but
3 and 4 were actually pretty good. And as we're a little off, but were these sequels? I thought the
Last Key.
Last Key was 4,
and then the third one was Insidious 3, but it was the prequel.
Yeah. I thought both of those were actually pretty good sequels. Like I think I like all the sequels to Insidious, as we're talking about sequels, more than the original.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough to say. I haven't because I've seen the first 2 a few times. I've only seen the last 2 in theaters once. Right. So it's like tough to say, but I like Insidious 1 and 2, especially if you watch them back to back because they blend into each other.
I probably would have to go back and watch them together. Not that I don't know if I ever will, to be honest, but I might.
But I don't know. There's not too much else to say about Annabelle Creation. It's shot really well. I mean, there's a lot of cool drone shots, depth of field stuff going on. I like the color palette.
Yeah,
I'm big on the color palette.
Buddy, Mr. Color Palette, I put on something. Man, I don't know about this color palette. All right, bro.
I'm a director. I think about these things, bro.
I know. I think you need to watch Comes Home though if you like Creation.
Add it to the list.
Bro, your list. You better start writing these down, man. Shit.
I'll remember it. It's fine.
You should. It is like I really liked. It's cool that you actually put that on this list, Creation, because when I was thinking about all like recent horror stuff, because to be honest, spoiler, I don't have any recent shit.
I figured there wasn't going to be that much recent shit on yours, and that's why I wanted to exclude the big 3 from mine. Because I'd be like, all right, so we'll give some attention to some of these other films that we wouldn't necessarily be talking about.
I was going to, like I said earlier in the podcast, I was going to go maybe rewatch some of the Saws. I really thought about it because I really do, especially back in the day. I was a real big Saw fan.
Yeah.
And I was like, I bet you one of them would probably make the list. Honestly, if I remember right, I really loved Saw 2, and I thought Saw 2 was a great sequel. And I actually really liked 4 and 6. 3 was a little overrated to me. Everyone loved 3. Saw 5, as we talked about, is trash. That's probably why Saw 6 was so much better, because it was so much better than 5.
Yeah.
Fuck. But anyways, we'll that a little touch of modern horror, but
we'll shelf the Saw conversation for the moment.
Okay.
Spoiler.
Oh, okay, all right.
But we can move on to your number 7, I believe.
So this is like you said. This is where, for me, it's a toss up between, the sequels and the originals. Like you said, they're kind of almost on an even playing field now. Like in my list, maybe not one of them. I'll get strung alive, burned alive if I say that about one of the sequels. but this one here, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2.
Incredible film. I wouldn't put it on my list because I didn't consider it horror exactly, but great sequel. Great sequel. There's no doubt about it.
I struggled with this. I broke my own rule in this, but
I finally opened my beer.
There you go. Usually it's
like an hour and a half in.
Everyone's like, "Oh, is Miles ready to start partying?" No, I'm not partying tonight, everyone. I'm a little hungover, but we're doing it. We're out here doing it. I rewatched this recently, actually, with the woman I was seeing before. Previously.
There's a lot of women in Miles' life these days.
Oh my God! I hope I don't even want to say anything. Kill me. Hope it's not a revolving door forever, ladies and gentlemen. But at least it's fun sometimes. So I rewatched. So this one's fresh. Actually, a handful of these are fresh. I won't keep saying I watched this one because I made her watch a lot of these that she hadn't seen or wanted to see. Texas Chainsaw 2, I put it on, obviously it's tonally completely different from the first one.
Right.
Which is why I think it works. Texas Chainsaw 1 is a product of the time, the grit, the 70s grit. I love the way that the Texas Chainsaw 1's one is, I don't know where it's at in my top films, but it's up there. It's a fantastic film. I love it. I always have since I watched it. Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2 holds a special place in my heart because I saw it before Texas Chainsaw 1. I went to Best Buy in Menor. I saw, we used to get the Sunday, my dad read every fucking newspaper on the planet, still does. So these Sunday ads, and I was riding with someone to go up to Menor. I was probably 14, something. And we didn't have allowances, we didn't do anything, but I did something for my dad. I helped him do a bunch of shit. I got $10, which, mind you,
$10 at the time.
This was 2001, 2002. $10 was still dope,
Right.
And they had an ad for DVDs or whatever. Best Buy. I knew I was going up there. I was like, I think I'm going to go to Best Buy with so-and-so's family or whatever. They had an ad for Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, $5.99 on DVD.
Was it the Breakfast Club poster and everything?
No. It was the generic, it was the first release. It was just Dennis Hopper on the cover with a fucking shotgun.
Oh, yeah.
I was like, oh, man. My parents aren't going to be with me. I bet you I could fucking
get this kid's parents to get it.
Because, well, you never know at the time if they're actually an ID you or not, because it's kind of like a weird, I don't know. You know how it is. Sometimes some people would, they wouldn't. I don't think it was as strenuous as it is nowadays, where they scan, swipe your ID and all this shit, They just look like, oh, yeah, you're old enough, or whatever.
Yeah.
So, that's what I did. Took my $10. I went to, because back then, if I got money, it was rare. It was very rare. And so I would save it for, usually because I was reading a lot, I would look for a film. I would save it and be like, if I see some sort of film, I'm gonna get it, or whatever. Because this is when the early 2000s when DVDs got a lot cheaper out of nowhere. They went from being $20-$30. Now you can find a bunch of shit for $5-$10.
Yeah.
Because the market was saturated, or they made too many copies, or whatever. Best Buy, the buying power of everything, so they would buy, in massive bulk. But looked through a thing, there it was, Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2, and I was like, I always want to see the original, but going to the video store at the time.
But the second one was on sale.
Well, no, because, okay, so going to the video store with your parents sometimes at a young age when you have no money, you could sneak in some stuff here or there. But when something says Texas Chainsaw Massacre on it,
right,
it's really hard to be like, hey, Mom, I want to rent the Texas Chainsaw Massacre tonight.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. My mom grew up in my grandfather was a pastor. My mom's still very religious, things like that. She's very understanding and very, open and, understanding of just I'm into different things, stuff like that. She's great about that. But still, as a kid, there were certain things that lines just weren't going to be crossed. And my dad never went to the video store, never anything. So it was always, it was just the mom thing. Mm-hmm. So I did somehow sneak in and got Last House on the Left as a kid.
But again, that's a vague title.
That's the thing. You can do that. And I'd read about Last House on the Left. I didn't realize how much it was going to fuck me up a little bit. That was probably one of the first shocking films I watched, because they didn't have Last House on the Left and TV in the early 90s. They weren't showing that shit. Maybe late night TCM, but I didn't know about, you don't know anything yet. Yeah. But so I couldn't see the first Texas Chainsaw. So I got that, went home, and this was back like I said, you get maybe a CD, an album, or a movie once. For me, it was once every 2 months, or maybe a holiday. My parents ran a pretty tight ship, you know what I mean? So I was so the hype, when you buy something, it'd be
right.
I sit down, I watch it, I made sure no one was home or no one, whatever. And I was just wow, this is fucking I'm trying to say fucking about this is crazy, the opening scene when they're driving with the fucking bros on the bridge and shit, and Leatherface comes up and he's shaking and cutting through their car and stuff. I'm just you're hooked. It's the best thing about this. You're fucking hooked within a minute to 2 minutes. Even if you've never seen the first one, you're fucking hooked. You have that whole big. You've seen it. So I'm just looking at you. But I'm hooked.
No, I'm just letting you talk.
And, well, this is like a passion. Like, you know, like when I was in school for special effects, over my desk that I had, I kept 2 film posters for inspiration. And they were Halloween 2 and Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2. And I kept them over to look up and be like, this is why I want to do, or I'm interested in what I want to do, because I saw these films at such a young age that, like, they left vivid. Like, I have a story. I remember this memory of going to fucking buy this shit, of all the fucking memories. Like, that's how vivid it was. So, watched it. Great story. You know, them on the radio, catching the caller, like, them happening to find the radio station, going to find it, you know?
Yeah, and then Chop Top's like a crazed fan and everything. Like, it's insane.
They're terrorizing the fucking radio station. You know, there's that whole sexual scene with him, like, acting like it's his dick or whatever, Leatherface.
It's
chainsaw,
just
fucking... And then...
Dennis Hopper's a riot.
He's phenomenal in it. Then, like, the whole scene when they get to their fucking crazy, like, hangout, hideaway thing, and everything that happens there. I'm not going to spoil it completely if there's one person on this podcast that hasn't seen it, but there's probably more than that. It's just... It never lets up. The first Texas Chainsaw rarely lets up either. That's the best thing. Tobe Hooper knew how to drive the story forward, but also constant tension, constant this. And there are some scenes when I just rewatched it again, I've seen it numerous times, but that I could still consider horrifying. I would say probably like the invasion of the radio station, the things that happen there. When I rewatched it again, like even now, like I said, just a couple months ago, they played those parts very straightforward, where they were actually like, what are you doing here? Like, what's this? And her character, like, everyone was like scared. Like, it was a very tense moment, and you know, Chop Top's saying a bunch of fuck shit, it's evil, and like, oh, and like yelling at Leatherface, why didn't you kill her like this? And it has enough elements for me that's horror,
right?
But it does.
It's a comedy. It's a comedy.
It's
a parody of the first film, pretty much.
But I couldn't.
But you couldn't not have it on your list because you got that connection to it.
I had to have it.
One of the films on my list, you could definitely argue it's more comedy than horror.
Okay.
But it's a similar situation, I guess. I would definitely say it's half and half. But
this might be 60-40. Like 60% comedy, 40% horror, depending on who's watching it and what they...
Depends what the vibes are in the room.
Yeah.
That has a lot to do with it.
Yeah, for sure. What do you have to say about it? Anything? Or?
I mean, nothing that you haven't really said. I mean, it's great. Like, obviously, I didn't put it on my list for the reasons I already mentioned. It should have been an honorable mention, but I didn't think about it. But I was also... Because I think I did think about it, but I was also like... I don't know, that one with... the dude from Full Metal Jacket, that's a good Texas Chainsaw Massacre sequel too.
Leatherface?
Was it called Leatherface?
Texas Chainsaw 3?
The one from the early... was that the remake? That might have been the remake. It was from like the early 2000s.
Oh yeah, the remake, and then...
Yeah, that was a remake, that's
and
why.
then the beginning. You could have put Texas Chainsaw the beginning on there because it's a sequel to a remake.
I've never seen that one.
Really?
I've never seen the beginning,
That's fun. I've actually seen... all of them now. You know which one I think's actually great, but they fucked up the continuity bad? That Texas Chainsaw that Twisted Pictures did, just called Texas Chainsaw.
I haven't seen that one either. That one's the newest one.
No, it's the second. No, they actually made a Leatherface, which is supposed to be like a prequel, which was the newest one. So there's Texas Chainsaw 2, Texas Chainsaw 3 Leatherface, Texas Chainsaw The New Beginning, and then there's the one with the female one, right? That's the one I've seen, but it's...
I can't recall.
So there's that one. And then there's remake, sequel to the remake, the beginning, Texas Chainsaw, and then Leatherface. So I think there's one that's about to come out. So there's 9, I think is there 9 films in the series? And then there's going to be a 10.
So there's Texas Chainsaw 2, Leatherface, the third one, The Next Generation, then Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2003, so that's a remake. That was the one I was gonna put, but then it wasn't a sequel. It was a remake.
That weird one in the middle, or am I just thinking about New Beginning?
The Next Generation was in 95.
Is that after or is that
No. So then Texas Chainsaw Massacre: The Beginning was in 2006. Texas Chainsaw 3D, Leatherface, and then the Texas Chainsaw
How did
Massacre.
my brain make up that there was another one in there?
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it's because the one with Matthew McConaughey, I think it had a couple different covers, and as a kid I saw that. And I think
Well, yeah, because it
threw me
was
off.
it was before he was famous, and then he became famous,
Yeah.
and they put his face on everything.
Like
That's the one where he's like deep throating the rifle.
Yeah, dude, that film is in fucking insane.
But yeah, I don't know.
Leatherface is a great. I actually got like Leatherface came out on like rare Blu-ray a couple years ago. Just like snuck it out. Warner Brothers snuck it out, and I was able to actually.
That's another one that I think is a little unbalanced. Like, I wouldn't say it's like bad, but there's just like some weird shit in it. Where like, I remember he's using like a weird like speaking spell, and he's like constantly like writing like food on it or something.
I think though that there's two versions of that film. I want to say the Blu-ray that I have, because I haven't watched since I bought the Blu-ray. I had it for fucking thanks to one of my exes for getting that for me for Christmas. I fucking appreciate it. But I haven't popped it in actually since I got it, and it's a shocker. But you know how it is. Sometimes you get something and it just sits on a shelf for a year or two, and you're like,
Right.
I better watch this. But I think there's two versions of it. I think there was
There
a
could be,
controversy
yeah,
with
I'm
that.
not
I think
sure.
I remember I watched it. I think I watched it the first time. No, I watched it the second time with Dylan Neamy. Shout out to Dylan Neamy. And actually, I went to his house because he was going through something at the time. And I walked in and let's watch a film, you know. I go look at his stuff, and there was a sealed copy of Leatherface in his thing.
Oh,
And I
yeah.
was like, "What the fuck?" You know, I got pissed, and I was like, "Ooh," and I ripped it open, and fucking threw it
Threw it
in, and kicked back, have a couple beers. He got in a much better mood after that, and he was like, "Oh, that was pretty damn good." I'm like, "Yeah, see, it's sitting there fucking wrapped on your shelf for
Yeah.
probably 5 fucking years."
Yeah.
But another good memory with that Texas Chainsaw, a lot of memories.
Yeah.
But I think we kind of covered that one.
Yeah.
What do you got for me?
So my next one is my number 7. It's gonna be very brief because I guarantee that this is on your list. So we'll talk about it when we talk about it. If this is not on your list, I'm gonna be shocked.
Okay.
My number 7 is Hellbound, Hellraiser 2.
Fuck, it's on my list.
Okay,
yeah.
I knew it was gonna be on your list. So
Oh, what a great sequel.
So we'll just say that's my number 7. We'll talk.
The only thing I'll say about it is it's better than Hellraiser. So then there we go.
We'll talk about it when we get to yours.
Okay. We're speeding up the process.
Because this is the one where I wrote just a couple words because I was like, I guarantee Miles is going to talk about it. So I just said, I love how weird it is.
So
And it has, well, we'll talk about it when we get to yours. But
So, okay,
there's a lot of great shit in
well,
it.
I guess we got to get through some of these. I don't know how long you've been going here, but hopefully we're not losing fans by the second.
I know, you're good.
Number 6 I've actually watched recently too, and I'll be curious if you've seen this. You probably have. Return of the Living Dead Part 3.
Haven't seen it.
Haven't
seen
man.
it. Enlighten
So how
me.
many films?
Enlighten
how
me.
many films on my list have you not
Most
seen?
of them. Pretty much all.
Demons 2, Fly. So I've done 5 films now, 10 through 6, and you've only seen 2 of them. So that's,
Yeah.
I feel like as we get higher up, though, definitely.
Yeah.
But how many have I not seen on yours so far? Just the Dracula.
Just the
right?
Dracula one, yeah.
Return of the Living Dead Part 3. A lot of these I have great stories. I remember the first time I watched these, which is
Yeah.
also why like a lot of these sequels stuck out immediately.
Right.
Like I said, 1 through 7, I was like, boop, done.
Here it is, yeah.
We'd finally got Sci-Fi on TV, like Sci-Fi Network, because people, maybe a little bit younger don't remember this, but Sci-Fi wasn't on original cable packages like when we were like young originally.
Right, yeah.
Like it took, I don't think we got Sci-Fi and Ashtabula until I was like maybe like 12-ish, which still sounds young, but like I was old enough to remember like not having it and then be like, oh, we're getting Sci-Fi Channel.
Yeah.
Because I remember going somewhere once to a hotel room and they had Sci-Fi Channel and I just
You're just like, what the hell is this?
I was like, can I stay up as long as I can watching this? My parents weren't okay with that, but they were like, yeah, go ahead. And I remember just watching like back when like this was like late 90s. Like I think Sci-Fi had some really weird fucking shit on TV at the time, and I was like, this is great. I can watch this all day, Sci-Fi would do themed Saturdays where they would maybe show 2 or 3 films in a row, sometimes like 4, that were all a theme. Like action horror, vampires, Alien, they would do
right,
which I think I don't think they do it as much anymore, but they did for a while.
They just do Sharknado night.
Well, they got away from that. They finally got away from that a bit because I think their ratings were going through the fucking floor after they made Robot Shark Snake versus Tarantula Tortoise Part 10 or something That's probably a real film, by the way, because I actually recorded a couple months ago that I couldn't believe were real films. Some crazy monster. I was like, that's real.
Yeah.
The titles were so bad. I was like, record. I was like, I'll get drunk and try one of these out. It's probably going to be a fucking PlayStation 1 graphic coming through my screen. Oh, for sure, yeah. But I have a soft spot in my heart for that too. But so they had a zombie day, and I had read about some of the films that were on there, and I was like, stoked. I think it was raining all day. I was like, I'm gonna sit in here, we're gonna
watch these.
I was probably 13, 14, and the first film of the day, which was funny because it was in the middle, was Day of the Dead, the original, and I had never seen Day of the Dead, so I sat down and watched Day of the Dead, and then went right into Return of the Living Dead Part 3.
Okay.
So for me as a kid, I'm like, wow. I just remember being like, what a double feature to watch. I was just like, oh. And I was playing the Resident Evil games time. I was like, it was right. Everything was right up my alley. Yeah. But it was also before, zombies had been big in the past, but it was obviously way before The Walking Dead, way before kind of zombies completely took over.
The mid-2000s boom.
Yeah. This was probably right as the first Resident Evil film was going to come out, and before Shaun of the Dead, obviously before 28 Days Later, when all those kind of came and just blasted zombies back into, and then at the end when that was about to die, here comes the fucking Walking Dead on TV and just took zombie shit almost to an annoying level where I couldn't even there were so many.
Yeah, there was oversaturation.
The big indie video boom, Dimension Extreme, a bunch of IFC labels, Magnolia, a bunch of these labels that were in the mid 2000s becoming big. Some of those it was every foreign zombie film every month. All this crazy shit was coming out before the oversaturation, you had the core ones, but they weren't, until really those films we just talked about boosted them up. There wasn't a lot out there, at least mainstream.
Yeah,
mainstream that you could get as a kid. So to watch Day of the Dead, and I watched Return of the Dead Part 3. Return of the Dead Part 3. I'm sure you've seen the imagery. You've seen the.
Oh yeah, I'm familiar with the stuff, but I haven't seen the whole thing.
So Return of the Living Dead Part 1 and Part 2 are horror comedies.
Yeah.
Horror comedies, straight up, 100%. I couldn't even put 2 on this list, even though 3's 100 times better, even though there's the Michael Jackson zombie in Part 2.
Yeah.
3 was directed by Brian Usna, who was a protege of... I'm having a brain fart now. You're going to yell at me, and Jared's going to yell at me if you're listening to this, but he's never going to listen to this.
A protege of...
Who directed Reanimator?
Oh, shit. Stuart Gordon?
Yes.
Yeah.
He was one of, him and Stuart Gordon, I don't know why my brain wasn't working right there, but Stuart Gordon and him, worked together real close in this, so he was one of, his, friends. I think Brian Usna might even worked on Reanimator. I think he directed one of the Reanimator sequels, to be honest. I don't know if it was Bride. That would be crazy.
That would be crazy,
but,
yeah.
So he does Return of the Dead Part 3. Return of the Dead Part 3 was shot in the 90s. So horror's...
Right.
It's dying, but it's in a little.
It's in a low period. Cinema in general was in a low period.
This was This was probably I think this was just 92 maybe when this came out. So real weird, real
right before Jurassic Park. It was a real strange couple years. Yeah.
So it's shot straightforward. It's a horror film, straight up horror film. Spoilers on this. I won't spoil too much because I can't believe you haven't seen this, but dude works. So main character's dad works for a military base. Obviously, they're fucking around with the chemical that makes the zombies. They're trying to find ways to use them as soldiers and, the whole government bullshit. Yeah. They find a way to tranquilize the zombies, or they're trying to, so they can reanimate them, use them as weapons, come to the field, put them all down, put them back in their fucking canisters, and go on their way, Cool. Main kid wants to be, it's early 90s, grunge is just popping off. He wants to be, wants to be a rock star, wants to be a drummer. He's got his girlfriend who wants a rock star boyfriend, whatever. She's a little bit of a wild child. the dad gets a new reassignment. They're gonna have to fucking move because his dad, military fan, dad, it's time to move. So he's pissed because he finally has friends at this place. Has a girlfriend. So he's basically like, fuck you, dad, and he's like, I'm gonna go. He's like, I don't want to hear this shit now. So he goes, picks up the girlfriend. This will spoil this for you a little bit, but it's fine. You kind of already know from the cover. Goes, gets the girlfriend on a motorcycle. They're riding. She tries to shake his hips, to be like, oh, I'm gonna fuck the shit out of you, basically. And the bike wobbles. The car's coming around the thing. He moves, swerves to miss it. She flies face first into a fucking pole.
Right.
Dead. Dead as a doornail, He's freaking out, losing his mind. And earlier in the film, they had found out about this, I won't spoil it too much, but found out about the shit that brings corpses back. This, what is it? I always say it wrong. Trioxin or whatever.
It's something like that, yeah.
Whatever they use in the canisters. So him, being a young kid, he's like, well, I'm gonna go bring her back, because she hasn't been dead that long or whatever. She's not gonna be one of these fucking freaks or whatever.
Ones,
yeah. Goes, takes his dad's ID card, sneaks into this military base, brings her ass back to life, pulls her out of there. They escape, and she's normal for the most part. She's speaking, everything's normal. She goes, what's wrong? And she starts realizing, she's like, I'm fucking dead. No pulse, no heartbeat. She's cold. Everything like that. He tries to feed her. She's puking,
right.
She's realizing she's fucked.
Like, I'm a zombie, yeah.
And he's like, and she's getting pissed at him, and he's like, he's in love with her. He didn't know what to do. Makes a stupid choice. So it's cool to see them, basically, they're kind of on the run, because his dad finds out, obviously, what happens. So the government people and everything like that, they, they're trying to find them, because, damn, there's could be a possible zombie outbreak, They run across this fucking gang of, Hispanic gangsters, in the store, while they're, trying to feed her. Something crazy happens that I won't spoil, and now they're kind of at odds with each other. So now this, gang of gangsters is trying to fucking find them and kill them. So good subplots and shit like that. One of the gang members might have got infected, so things start happening.
Okay.
Ends up in the LA River. If anyone knows what that is, not really a river, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
But they come across this crazy homeless man that helps him hide out, and from the gangsters, from the government, and then the gangsters eventually find where the hangout is, and but it's kind of weird sealed sewer door, and the girl's basically the boyfriend basically starts figuring out oh, this is we're fucked, I don't know what to do, she's changing, I'm being hunted right now, it's starting to get bad. And I'm sure you've seen the poster, anyone that kind of knows about the film, the iconic shot of the girl with the completely mutilated body with nails and stuff coming out of her hands or arms. So the homeless man and the kid go out, try to fight or stop the gangsters, and they're basically about to get fucking killed. These guys don't give a fuck, There's a great, fantastic reveal scene where the door slowly swings open, and then her head's down, and she looks up, and then the camera goes all over her body, showing every special effect. I mean, she's head to toe. She has different scarifications, nails, because the thing I forgot to mention, a little bit of spoiler, I'm almost done with this, but pain stops the hunger. So from her trying to want to eat people or do things. So with her having her body, all these different piercings, nails, spikes, glass sticking out of her.
Just anything she can do to retain her humanity, basically, yeah.
But she obviously becomes a fucking monster. Not even a zombie, a legit monster. And then she ends up going off on these dudes, and it's a great, I don't want to say it's not slow burn, because a lot happens, but it's just a great story. Especially if you've seen the first two, and then you go into this one, you're not expecting this to be like this at all. And
because the first two are very silly,
very silly. But this is
very scary too, and can be serious when they need to be.
There is,
but
this is very much a horror film. There is no comedic element to this, really. I mean, there might be a couple scenes where they say something fucking stupid, or there's a couple kills that are kind of funny, but you know, it looks like it was shot in the 80s. You would never know it was a 90s horror film. Probably because everyone that worked on it was, you know, days horror people. So a ton of great effects. The final shots, I will say the end is, I'll just keep using this, but batshit fucking crazy. I'm not going to tell you what happens because you need to see it, but beautiful special effects scene where there's a ton of stuff on the screen at once, and it's just like, damn. Like, I'm just like, as a kid too, seeing this, I'm like, there's a lot of different zombie types in this. You know, in a lot of films, the same type zombie. There might be different wounds and stuff, but they're literally almost like some creatures in this. Like, the government's fucked with shit in this. So, like, it's different. It's horror. Ton of effects. As a kid, it's a great story because it's like, well, what would you do in that situation? Like, if your girlfriend, if you thought you could save your girlfriend and bring her back to life, the person that you're closest to at the time.
It's like, why wouldn't you do it?
Why, yeah, so, like, it's a very... I love the story. I love the setup. I just think it's a great film. So, you haven't seen it. I explained most of it to you now and the audience.
Well, you sold me on it, so...
It's a good... It's just such a well... Like, I was not expecting... But then again, I saw part 3 before I saw part 1 and 2.
Well, there you go.
So...
There's a trend on Miles's list.
Well, when people don't understand, too, we talk about streaming things, that you can go on Amazon now and watch a whole fucking series in a day. Like a film series or whatever.
Yeah, but back then, it's what you can get, yeah.
Whatever is showing on TV, or whatever the fucking video store or the store that sells shit, that's what you're getting. If they only have part 4 or whatever,
that's what you're getting.
You're fucking watching part 4 first. Like, there's no... People don't... They didn't have... Even Blockbuster sometimes, you go in there, they have like 1, 6, 5. Like, I swear to God, especially the Beale one, they wouldn't have full series stuff sometimes.
Right, yeah. But yeah, so what am I on, number 6?
You are.
Number 6, we talked about this briefly. Saw 2 is my number 6.
Great choice.
So, again, it could have been one of the later sequels as well, but that would require me watching the later sequels. I decided I'm just going to rewatch Saw 2 because I remember Saw 2 the most anyway. And the reason I decided to go with this one over any of the sequels anyway, like, even, like, you could debate which ones are better, but Saw 2 is really the one that made Saw what it is today.
Agreed.
And when people think about the Saw movies, like, when you're talking about Saw, like, people are like, oh, it's the torture porn, blah, 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 blah. The first one isn't really like that. No. Like, when people are talking about Saw, they're talking about Saw 2.
Yes.
For the most part. And this is really... Because the first one... Spoiler if you haven't seen the first one. It's just the two guys in the room the whole time.
It's a genius film. I remember seeing the first Saw, and I was... Like, that's a film that the hype was real. It was so different than anything... at the time, or the time that was in the mainstream, that they got to a theater. Because that was when Lionsgate was first taking... Like, they were doing a lot of home video stuff, but they finally got where they were putting shit in theaters. And what one of the first films they put in theaters, what a fucking film to go off on. Because it literally set a trend for the next 5 to 6 years.
Every year there was a Saw film.
Right. Well, I mean, even in horror, I think the quote-unquote torture porn stuff died. Like, it's funny because Saw started it and Saw really ended it, because by the time Saw the final chapter came out, there was not a lot of shit like that coming out. It kind of, it transitioned,
it fizzled out,
Paranormal Activity and everything like that. But yeah, go ahead. Let's see. Talk about
there's not too much to say, but like, that's another one that I have very vivid memories of, like you did with a lot of yours.
Right.
Like, it was I think it came out, it was either in 7th grade or 8th grade. It was one of those years.
Came out in 05, right? No.
Something like,
yeah, because 04 was their first Saw, right? Pretty sure.
Something like that. But
I was a little bit older when they were coming out, because that was my big thing. We'd go every opening day, like, to watch them with friends. Like, Jared, I think me, Jared, and Dan Lacey went, like, from Saw either 3.
So Saw 2 was 2005, and the first one was 04.
I think I saw Saw 2 by myself opening day, but then I think 3 and on, pretty sure it was a tradition, at least for most of the sequels. Like, me, Jared, and Dan would go every opening Friday.
Right, and that's the memory, because, like, so yeah, I would have been in 8th grade in 2005.
Okay.
We were at the Halloween dance in junior high.
I didn't even know they had those.
Yeah, and, like, everyone was talking about, like, okay, after this dance, we gotta go to the mall and watch Saw 2.
Yeah.
So that was the move.
The old Sabrick Theater got Saw 1, and I think they got it on a whim. Like, it was kind of like, oh, we need to throw something in a theater. Because I remember seeing it there, but then I remember Saw obviously exploding, and yeah, Saw 2 was at the mall.
Yeah. And yeah, so I mean, like, this is really, like, I said it already, but this is the one that most people think about when they're talking about Saw, like, as a concept, because the first one wasn't like that at all. This one has Jigsaw more as, like, a main focus.
Right.
Because he's actually in it and not a dead body in the middle of the room or whatever. Like, you see him there. I mean, the story is a little cliche, I guess. I mean, it's the cop trying to get his son, like, shit like that, but...
It sets up everything for... Obviously, as Amanda, as a main character, it sets up everything for the later sequels. Like, really, like, I would say, from what I remember, sets them up pretty nicely, you know? And, like, her character, and then you find out with her involvement, becomes such, like, a central part of the Saw franchise.
Right.
So, Amanda was her name, right?
I think so, yeah. I think it's Amanda.
But, I just pulled it off my ass. Cause
it's fine.
I can remember whole films, but most I can't remember a fucking...
Are bad, yeah.
You know.
And this is where, obviously, it establishes everything that goes on after this. And you get the sense, like, with these people, and they're all, obviously, they all wake up, they don't know why they're there, but they have some sort of connection. And you really, I think this film, more than a lot of the sequels, from what I remember, you really get the sense that if these fucking people would just work together, they would be fine.
They all, if I remember right, they all hate each other so fucking much.
Yeah.
Like, it's just ridiculous.
And this is also one where, like, you can tell, like, again, they would all be fine. Like, because, like, in later sequels, you're like, all right, even if they make the right choice or they do this or that, like, it's debatable whether they would have actually made it out of there. But this one, I feel like the rules were better in this one. Like, It's definitely like, okay, if they were to do what they were supposed to do, they would have been all right. Just like the main cop or whatever, because he's in on it too. Technically, he's not...
Yeah.
in the room with everyone, but he's getting fucked with too. And if he would have just done, because Jigsaw's like, well, if you just wait till the timer runs out, your son will be here or whatever. And lo and behold, the tapes they were watching the entire time were recorded. It was not in real time.
Right.
So, like,
the early Saw films were so ingenious with the way that they were set up. And that's my biggest gripe with that series, is that as they went on, they basically destroyed their own rules that they created.
Yeah.
Like, and I don't really know why, because a lot of the people that worked on the franchise worked on every film. Like, most of the directors of the later films, most of the films that were later were people that were producers or were screenwriters or were... You all right there, buddy?
I will interrupt the podcast just for one moment for a joke, because my wife is in the other room and she could hear us, and apparently Mark Zuckerberg or some shit is listening to her, because she texted me and said, how did this come up when you were talking about it? And it's a meme that says slaw, and it's the Saw hand with coleslaw in it.
The fucking world's crazy now, man.
Yeah,
I fucking hate this shit.
Siri's listening to us from the other room and showing my wife memes.
Oh my god.
But anyway, as you were saying,
some of them, like you were kind of hanging out while I was going off on it. The traps are like, you have 10 seconds to rip this part of your arm off and do this, or you're fucking dead. And then the person's like, what? And then their face gets ripped off.
Like, what do you mean? Yeah, like, what do you mean?
Yeah, like, they're like, and they did that because obviously Jigsaw's accomplices, so they go on, they don't understand Jigsaw's vision, I guess, or they think they do. So it creates, problems. But at the same time, they become almost like, I don't want to say parodies themselves, but like you said, a lot of the games become almost completely unwinnable. Like, the traps are so extreme that you would have to, like, you'd either bleed out from doing whatever they asked you to probably before you got out, or you're just dead. You're gonna fucking die.
Exactly.
There's no.
In this one, they're still, like, pretty straightforward. I mean, like, you're gonna get fucked up, but I mean, you're gonna, like,
you're probably gonna be maimed or scarred or something, but you were gonna survive. It was just going to be the most traumatic experience of your fucking life, obviously.
Because there's the one where, like, the key's, like, behind the guy's eyeball.
Yeah.
And, I mean, yeah, you're going to lose your fucking eye, but you're not going to bleed out or anything.
That's the one where they put the that is the razor blade box too, right?
Right. This is where the girl falls into the thing of needles.
That's the accomplice because she was a drug addict. That's Amanda.
Right.
Yeah, that's a very iconic scene to me because the one guy fucking just throws her into it, doesn't he?
Yeah. The dude gets like shot through the head when he like goes through the eye hole of the door.
Right.
And this is the one. Yeah, the guy's in the gets burned in like the oven thing in this. He gets out, but like he had to get like some sort of clue in there.
Oh, okay, right. I feel like this one has some of the most like I haven't seen Saw 2 in probably 10 years, and I can remember basically most of what you're saying and shit like that.
Right, because this one had like all the most iconic like moments in it. And yeah, it's before the series got too complicated. Like definitely like like, oh well, is Amanda behind this, or is it this other guy from the first movie, or is
Jigsaw actually dead, or it starts getting,
and like people were saying, oh, the story's like so like they distract you with the torture porn, but the story's like so intricate and well done, and like all this. It was like, no, the story doesn't make any fucking sense. But
so you can tell as the like probably around. Saw 3 was good, except for I feel like it's overrated because a lot of people think that's one of the best sequels. I really fucking love Saw 4. And then you could tell by Saw 5, because Saw 5 is not good, as we talked about before, like, they're starting to lose their way for sure.
Yeah.
They make up for it a bit. Like, I really remember really liking Saw 6, and Saw 6 had some good stuff, some good kills and good twists. But which saved the film for me, made it... Actually, I still think from my memory, Saw 6 is fucking great. But the story was so all over the place. Like they're reaching... They're grasping at anything. And then 7, the final chapter, literally almost every kill is unwinnable. That's all I remember from that. Like, there's one where Chester has to, like, rip his fucking super back off, do something with a key, or his friend's gonna get killed. He has to do like 10 things in literally like 3 minutes.
Right.
And I'm just like, I remember being in the theater, I was like, this is probably the most unwinnable fucking game they've ever done. It was a cool scene, but it was
right.
There was no,
I said, like it's
no
not
fucking way that anyone was ever gonna fucking do that.
Yeah. There's not too much else to say about it that we haven't already said. It's definitely a product of its time. With the editing.
Oh, yeah.
And just everything about it is very, very mid-2000s.
I love that early 2000s, mid-2000s shit. Though. Like, I watched the Salem's Lot miniseries in 2004 the last weekend. I'd never seen it, and Salem's Lot. It's one of my favorite novels, actually. I just love it. I think it's a perfect vampire story. And I love Tobe Hooper's Salem's Lot. This miniseries follows the book really fucking well. I was surprised about how much shit they could get in there in like that, and like
amount of time.
The ending, and when things start to go off, takes a while for it to go off, but it's really fucking good. But it's very 2004.
Oh yeah,
and fucking Rob Lowe's the main character. Sometimes just does not hit. Like he's just such a sore fucking thumb, Like but. I love that look, that weird, the color palettes that you probably fucking hate.
The green color palette, it's definitely very prevalent in all 2000s
or
cinema.
Blue, or that like bluish hue. Bluish hue or green hue. Some kind of dark hue that makes it look like you're in a shitty new metal video.
Which, you haven't seen my film, but in Unlucky, we sort of did an homage to that.
Okay.
Because we have like a scene where, like it's a comedy film, obviously, but... The dude gets abducted by a cult. As soon as it goes to the cult's hideout, it's that green color palette.
Oh, my God. I'm going to love it. I need to see that.
It's very underwhelming, but sure.
Buddy, I need to see your shit, man. I'm a horrible friend. Anyway.
One of these, that'll be a podcast. We'll watch my shit and we'll watch your shit. That'd be a hell of a show.
I have a fucking feature film that was sent to me that I worked on. I have never watched yet.
Hey, man, we'll watch and review it on the show, bro.
It's a horror. It's a sci-fi horror spoof, so it's meant to be very fucking corny. Like even the effects are fucking corny.
Yeah.
I was sent that like 2 years ago, and I still haven't watched it.
I think we talked about that when we recorded our first podcast. I think we talked about how you just got sent it, or you were about to get sent it, or whatever.
Maybe that was it. I have another one that fucking work done in like 2011, and it premiered at a film festival in LA like 2 years ago.
Oh, yeah?
And it won an award, and we were all supposed to get copies of it.
Never.
Where's my fucking copy, bro?
Yeah.
I did get this like a certificate emailed to me that it was an award-winning
film, yeah.
Like, okay, well,
add that to your resume, yeah. But I want to watch the fucking thing, right?
yeah, like I can't find it either. Like I'm like, okay, well, is it ever gonna? It was some guy that the director was a fucking former athlete who had film school, gone to film school and done stuff too. So
right.
It's like his career was winding. He wasn't like a super famous athlete, but he was successful enough. Like I don't even know if he was basketball, football, whatever. But he wanted to start doing indie films after his he had some money. I mean, it's some money
right.
fucking burn. So
yeah,
they hired me to fucking. I was one of 5 or 6 makeup artists, and I did some body bag corpses, and I did an old age. I did a stretch and stipple old age makeup on a woman. I did the stretch and stipple, which is what they use in The Exorcist. That was where like Dick Smith invented it. And then the woman came in and did the actual makeup, or she was supposed to be an old hooker.
Yeah.
So that was my last day on set, and I really wanted. I couldn't stay because they were going to film until 6 a.m. because it needed to be night. I'm doing the makeup. Like we started doing the makeup at like 10 o'clock at night. In that middle of fucking nowhere above some old restaurant.
Yeah.
And I think I had to go, because I was in my final semester. I was going to be starting my final semester of college. I had to go to class the next morning. Yeah. So I was like...
Well, yeah, I'll do this makeup, but I got to dip.
Yeah, and it was like another X amount of time to drive home, too, So it was like... I would like to... Fifth Dimension. I think it's called Fifth Dimension, the film. I'd like to see the Fifth Dimension. I probably never will. My favorite thing I ever worked on, the trailer that was supposed to be a film that was based after a book... which one of my exes has that book. Fuck you. But I hope they caught that. But 7X, the director saw out of his mind. He's re-edited the trailer 6 times, and because he also played one of the main actors in the thing, of course. Yeah. So he just keeps editing more footage of himself to try to resell it. And I'm like, bro, I have all the stills from that, all the makeup I did, like these like a witch tearing in this guy's back, like all this cool shit. And just keeps editing in more scenes of him running around screaming in the dark. And I'm just like, yep, just take more makeup out of this. Like, I used to have a credit on there and everything. I'm just I don't know, I'm going off my own shit. Anyway, let's get back to...
You're good.
Let's get back to the topic.
So, we're on your number 5.
We made it.
We're halfway done.
Halfway done.
Well, that's it for this time, you guys. I hope you enjoyed the Top 10 Horror Sequels Part 1. Again, Part 2 is coming very, very soon. Again, if you guys enjoyed this episode, make sure you're subscribing over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you listen to podcasts. And don't forget the YouTube channel. You definitely gotta subscribe to the YouTube channel as well. And let's keep this conversation going. Make sure you tweet to me what some of your favorite horror sequels are. And again, you're not gonna wanna miss Part 2 of the season finale coming very soon. So that's it, you guys. Again, I hope you enjoyed the show, and we'll see you next week. So as always, stay spooky.